Hey, how's the form? It's Saturday night. My name is Michael McQuaid. We're live for the Crack Boys ahead of week 8. Delighted to be joined by Colin Malowish's Cronin, Brian Match of the Day O'Leary, and last but not least, Mark Strictly Come Dancing Cockerel. Boys, happy Saturday night. How are we all doing?
Very good. Enjoying the birthday celebrations. The Irish NFL show celebrates its first year in existence, and yeah, we're here. We are live on a Saturday night.
Brian, this day last year, man. Well, this time last year, look at us. Look at the shape of every one of us. Maybe Brian, I could have had a shave before the first show, but it's been a long year, Brian.
I'm just glad Mark finally got to clean up the rubbish in the background. You had me reminiscing today, Michael. I saw that episode this morning. I even clicked in and watched 5 minutes of it. And yeah, let's just say we've come a long way since that first episode. And I was trying to remember the best moments because there's been quite a few. I don't know whether it was the wool shed or the live show the Saturday night in London leading up to the games of Tottenham, being in the media area, or whether it was the night in which Mark said that if Jesus Christ was the quarterback for the Seahawks, the Giants still, the Giants still wouldn't win, but they did win. There was some fantastic moments. So I'm sure you have something lined up for tonight.
I don't. There's a clippy video on Twitter right now with a few images. Maybe, and this is the thing, like I guess tomorrow I'll have some time. Maybe we'll whip up a video. My favorite moment, Mark, is whenever Rich Eisen says Brian O'Leary. I can't control myself, but look at that rubbish in the back, man. I never even realized that tonight.
That wasn't rubbish. That was just a storage space. I was hiding away from my family, obviously. Yeah, no, we've had some great moments, great guests. Yeah, when Rich Eisen goes, yes, Brian. That's up there, to be honest with you. But look, it's been an absolute ball for last year, Michael. Well, I can't believe in your video compilation, your thanks on Twitter, which I've just added a few extra names on, is when you started going through all the people we've had on, and I corrected you on a few, about 20 other people you hadn't mentioned. And I know I've still missed people off that list as well. It really just amazes you how far it's gone in a year. And look, bigger and brighter and better. We're already planning and building up to the playoffs and the Super Bowl next year. Already working on the new and further guests to come on during the season and everything. And the sky continues to be the limit. And obviously, massive thanks to everyone who's watched, tweeted, commented, supported, bought the merch, done whatever in relation to it. We really massively appreciate it all.
Michael, sorry, I agree 100% with Mark. I'm just in that picture again, if you don't mind sticking it up there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because Colum's had a busy year. He's bought a house and moved, and he's obviously
he got some new plans.
He's taking it easy on the trips to the garden centre by the looks of it since he's moved into the house.
Well, Colin, obviously just before we go back to Colin, the Irish NFL show presented by Matchbook Betting Exchange and Trust Gaming, and we have a giveaway tonight. It ends at midnight, and Brian's picking the winner before he goes to bed. We're giving away a gamer chair, a headset, and a copy of NFL Game Pass, with thanks to Gamerstore.ie. Colin, very quickly, obviously I know you have a lot of memories over the last year. Yvonne Nicola from RTE just liked the show, liked the live tweet. She must be very happy because in between our last show, Packers get the win. Did somebody predict the Packers on Thursday night, boys? I'm just putting that out there. Colin, all good for Aaron Rodgers.
Indeed. Kudos, Michael. But as I think if we had a look at our records and we compared them to Lindsay Jones's 5-year-old, I think we'd all see that we in and around. I think that's the beauty. Genuinely, though, I think that's what's really interesting about the NFL is that it really is any given Sunday, Monday, or Thursday. But it is the case that anyone can beat anyone. Look, the Jets did a number on the Titans a few weeks ago, and I think that's what makes this league so interesting is that you can think, they're going to put a beat down on them, and yeah, sometimes it does happen, but it is the case that on the right occasion, it can go any which way.
Yeah, Michael, dare I bring up, you picked the Jets the week before, so the expression about even a blind squirrel can find a nut from time to time does kind of ring true. But fair play to you for picking them, and even more fair play to Matt LaFleur and the Green Bay Packers for a pretty impressive team display team being the operative word there. It was not an Aaron Rodgers salvage job. It was a great team performance.
Absolutely. Can I just thank everybody watching this as well? Not just tonight, but over the last year. It's been incredible. There's nearly 50 people watching this now on Twitter. There's people watching on Facebook, on YouTube. If you want to comment on the live show tonight, we'll try and get them in. We're going to go through every game ahead of week 8. Your best bet is to comment on YouTube or on Facebook. That's where we can put the chats up on the screen because Twitter haven't worked it out yet. Brian, have you anything to add there? Sorry, did I fob you
No,
off
I
there?
was just going to say it was a bit of an unusual game in many ways because the Packers were so deserving of the win. Like they were by far the best team throughout the game, pretty much for the entirety of the 4 quarters, and they let the Cardinals back in to a certain extent. And then in the end, it took an interception with less than 20 seconds to go to see off the Cardinals. And they could have. We've seen teams lose games this season where they've walked away saying we really should have had that one. And watching it on Friday morning and they were driving down, I felt this is a game that the Packers are going to potentially lose, and they'll look back on it because it was such an opportunity to get the 4 seed, thankfully for the Packers and the interception.
Brian, sorry, I was just going to say, it felt a little bit like the Hail Murray game last year, where the Cards had no right in winning it, but they kind of purloined it out of somewhere. It just felt like they were going to steal it, but you're absolutely right. They didn't in the end. AJ Green wasn't on the right page, and say ça, Packers march on, and the Dolphins, 1973 Dolphins, pop some more champagne again.
Absolutely. Week 8 of the NFL season, boys. Week 8. We're almost there. We're almost sitting outside a taco joint at 4 a.m. in LA after Super Bowl. No? Okay, well, we can't talk about it. Okay, right. We'll come back to that. Not just yet. Okay. Again, just a reminder of how far we've come, boys. But
Michael, I can assure you I won't be sitting outside a taco joint at any point. So just to be clear.
Okay.
Not that he's aware of anyway.
Let's just start off. Colin, thank you for your comment. Well done on great years, lads. And this is the problem with Twitter. I can't say who the person's name is. At DCTwitWoo. Can the Dolphins get within 30 points of Buffalo? We'll find out. And we'll come back seeing a couple of Falcons tweets. Let's go straight into it. Carolina Panthers 3-4, going to the Falcons 3-3. Colin, who have you got for NFL Week 8? I'm not going to say today or tomorrow. Who have you got for the sake of the podcast this week in the NFL?
Well, isn't it nice in some ways that we are week 8 and we're still not at the halfway point of the season, given it's 17 games. But if we take the Matt Ryan's last 4 games, 10 touchdowns and 1 interception. Sam Darnold's last 4 games, 4 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. That's kind of the state of the franchise. If you're the Panthers, you tried bringing in PJ Walker, didn't get it any better. And if you're the Falcons, well, Kyle Pitts, 471 receiving yards, the most by a tight end, rookie tight end through 6 career games in NFL history, back-to-back 100-yard games. The Falcons really finding out that just line them up and just put the ball up there. They've tried opposing teams, tried safeties on, tried corners, tried moving linebackers over to help out. What is magnificent about Kyle Pitts is that you see him at the podium and he has like glasses on and he looks like he could be at a spelling bee or a maths contest. And then he goes out in the field and he makes these absolutely ridiculous catches. So for the Panthers, you would have to say that the worry is Darnold hasn't been doing it. They've given up a huge number of sacks, 22 in total, which is 30th in the league. But the good news is the Falcons aren't great at rushing. They're 30th in terms of getting to the quarterback. So if the Panthers are to kind of have any hope, it's probably on the Falcons defense, and it will be fascinating, I think, to see Kyle Pitts up against Jeremy Chin. I think the Panthers are on the slide. I think this will be a relatively close game, given the Falcons will score points but will give up points. So the Panthers, will hopefully be able to keep it competitive. But I have the Falcons going to 4-3 after this, and the Panthers falling to 3-5.
Colin has touched on the fact that Sam Darnold has kind of regressed back to what we saw from his days with the Jets. But for me, the more disappointing aspect is the defense, because after the first 3 weeks of the season, when they were 3-0, they had the most sacks in the season. Most sacks in the league, And since that period, the 4 weeks since then, they've had the least sacks in the league. So they've literally gone from being arguably one of the best defenses in the league to one of the worst. And that obviously hasn't helped with the fact that the offense is playing so poorly. And then the flip side with the Falcons, like two players that we didn't see in London, wide receivers, Gage, really, they both had touchdowns last weekend. So it was great for Matt Ryan to have them back. And you touched on Kyle Pitts. I think we're gradually starting to see the player that we all expected when he was drafted. At the moment, he's on pace for 1,300 yards, and that record hasn't been broken since 1961, which was done by Mike Ditka. So if he keeps going the way he's going to break all sort of records. I'm with Colin. See, the danger with the Falcons is, the Falcons are the kind of team, we picked them, and then they just let us down. Like Mark says about don't back the Vikings and little things like this, the Falcons are very similar. But I felt last week, having been in situations last year and this season where they've thrown games away, last year was an important one. The fact that they drove down at the end and won the game. The momentum was building. They went to more than 4-3. They've still got a sneak of a wild card, even at this stage of the season. So for me, I think the Falcons will win.
If the Falcons do win tomorrow, it will be the first time since the end of 2017 that they've actually had a winning record. Like, that's how deep their despair has been over the last few years. They've never, not even 1-0, not even 2-1 at any point in that, since the end of 2017, which of course was also the last time they made the playoffs. If they do go to 4-3 and they continue to gel and they continue to slowly improve as the season goes on, as in fairness they've done in other seasons past, they're still right in the wildcard hunt in the NFC. So this is a big game for them to not have a letdown against the Panthers, who I agree with the boys are going in the wrong direction at the moment. Last week against the Dolphins, Deion Jones actually in the defense, which has been disappointing, really made a difference. I mean, he was everywhere. It was like there was two of them on the field at the same time. And when I look at the other side of this matchup, when I look at the Panthers, one but can't help wonder and think about the great quote machine that was George W. Bush when he gave the famous speech in Tennessee where he said, there's this famous saying in Texas, I'm sure you got it in Tennessee as well, but there's this famous saying in Texas, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice. And he suddenly realized what he was about to say, and he goes, a fooled man can't get fooled again. And because he didn't want to say shame on me. But for Sam Darnold as a starting quarterback in the NFL, it is very much a case of fool me once, shame on you, New York Jets. And has he fooled the Carolina Panthers? He's had a lot of disruption on the offensive line, but the last 3 games have been bad Sam Darnold. I don't see good Sam Darnold suddenly breaking out. I'm with the boys on this. Falcons all the way, 4-3, above 500. Go Hawks. Go Falcons. Dream again.
Go Dirty Birds.
Oh, and don't forget, tomorrow could be a massive game. Depending on the game tonight, the Braves could be playing later on that night to win the World Series in baseball. So,
spoiler alert. Well, I know Brian's a big baseball fan, so we'll get back to the World Series chat in a minute. Obviously, it'd be great to see the Braves win over the Houston Astros. Big shout out to D Orlando. Can you believe it's 3 weeks since we had D Orlando in London together? That was great crack, boys. Ever since we were in London, the Falcons have looked cool, man. They've looked really, really good. You're seeing guys call him at that podium, Cordell Patterson, Mike Davis, they just seem so chilled. There's a comment from Paul Sull here asking about Kyle Pitts and his potential. Is he set to take over the best tight end in football title? I think he looks really good. Last week he got 163 yards for 7 catches, gets his first touchdown in London. And last week, more importantly, on the other side of the teams there, Darnold, look, I think me or Colin could have padded up, or you two boys as well could have padded up and went out and done a decent job. Colin, Tim Jenkins, man, PJ Walker is probably that second quarterback in Carolina. I just can't see how the Panthers are going to win. And I'm going to take the Falcons to hopefully go 2-0 on my picks for this week. And I know, Colin, you have a couple of points to add to that, but I'm going Falcons all the way.
Yeah, just on the emergence of Kyle Pitts, he should be their number one receiver, right? Doesn't matter that he's a tight end. He should be their first option. And what that does is I think that frees up Ridley, who I think is much more comfortable in terms of being WR2. I think that suits him. But also just on Sam Darnold, this is it. Like if Sam Darnold is to have, a resurrection of any sorts, it's got to come against a Falcons defense that is porous. We know the Falcons are good on offense and that they can score points, but they struggle defensively. So if Sam Darnold, I think, struggles in the game tomorrow, that could be the end. I really don't see a way back after that, because they've done everything. They've given him a second opportunity. They've tried to build around him. Matt Rhule has been really good to him. If it doesn't work tomorrow, I think they have to pull the plug.
Yeah, and if he does struggle tomorrow, they're not at all going to regret the fact that they traded Gardner Minshew to the Eagles, are they? Oh, yes, they are going to regret that. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, they'd be doing well if Gardner Minshew was with them. I think, fortunate for Darnold, McCaffrey will be back in the next week or two, and that might might relieve some of the pressure on him. The fact that he has to have him back, because he's such an effective running back in the league. So we'll see, But yeah, it's concerning when you see him coming out of the game for an XFL. With all due respect to the XFL, it's not standing in the NFL. Him stepping in last week and it didn't work.
I've been very disappointed in Sam Darnold after the first 3 weeks. It's a bit like after week 1 when half of the media said the Packers were finished, including me. And now look at them. Look, it is what it is. But I'm going to take the Falcons. I think the Falcons could be a dark horse, and I agree with what you're saying, Mark. Dolphins, Bills. Column. The Dolphins are 1-6. The Buffalo Bills are 4-2. This game is in Buffalo, in Highmark Stadium. Did that change recently? I know it changed. I didn't know it was called Highmark Stadium.
Yeah, the Bills have had a week to mull over that loss to the Titans, and I still remain a little bit baffled by that call at the end, that they didn't just take the points and take it to overtime. Talked about that. I didn't think they were getting the touchdown on the QB sneak. They were only getting a first down, and what were they going to do then? So I imagine we may see a Bills team, if it's similar to last year, with a point to prove after they came back after losing just before the bye. I think for this, all eyes will be on Tua, given the various reports where we hear that allegedly a trade is in place if Deshaun Watson can settle those 22 outstanding misconduct allegations that are against him. Like with Tua, it is kind of the good and the bad. 4 touchdowns, but then a crushing interception against the Falcons defense that we just talked about, that has enormous issues. It's porous. So it's going to be very difficult for Tua tomorrow, going up against what are currently, ranked, certainly the number 1 defense in the league. Number 1 pass defense, they get sacks, second best against the run. It's going to be very difficult for Tua, even with Gesicki there for Mark. I think this is going to be a long, long day. I know the Bills are without Dawson Knox, who obviously went out with a broken hand, but looks like he might be back sooner than expected. But I think tomorrow will come too soon. But they just still have a bevy of weapons. And I can't see the Dolphins getting enough pressure on Josh Allen to make life difficult. I have the Bills going to 5-2.
Colin, there's a comment from Betty Swallox here saying that he wants you to give your jacket back to the Philippines. For anybody listening,
it is a Filipino jacket. Yes, I spent time in the Philippines a long time ago. Every time I wear it, somebody comments, either generally somebody from the Philippines. But yeah, good spot.
I thought it was the USA 1994 jacket the first time I saw it from the World Cup, but going back a long time there.
Brian, Paul Soul says the Dolphins are the biggest disappointment of the season.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. In fairness, myself and Colin picked them to be a wild card. They were 10-6 last year, and they've unfortunately, fell out of wild card spots to a very strong AFC. With all due respect, last year. So for them to be where they are now, and Flores, who, has gradually over a few years, you saw what he was doing. He was implementing the plan to bring them back to be challenging within the division. So yeah, I tend to agree with that. The Bills have had their number 6 games in a row, over 30 points. 6 games in a row, Josh Allen's had 100+ passer rating. And it's strange in a way, because the Dolphins have had some players this year that have been very exciting to watch. Like we saw in London firsthand, Gesicki. Waddle's had 7 more catches than Chase has had throughout the season. Yeah, he's 370 yards less, so that's reflective of where they are. I agree with Colin. I think the Bills are going to win this game comfortably. Not to be promoting people to be out there gambling, but I saw one today which I thought was a bit of a gimme. Tua to run for over 10 yards in the game. at evens. And bearing in mind, he's going to be running for his life. I could see him certainly running for over 10 yards. And the only way he's not going to match that, he's going to lose out on that, is if he's taking knees at the end of the game, and that's not going to happen. So for me, anybody out there that fancies a flutter, Tua over 10 yards rushing tomorrow, whatever day we are. And the Bills.
Brian, that reminds me of your favourite commentator, Tony Romo, when in the game he once had a run for 61 yards that actually netted 4 yards because he ran backwards, had to circle back round.
I remember the play.
And he ran for 4 yards. I mean, Tua might be doing a few of those tomorrow, to be honest with you. Look, I want to correct myself. I said about Minshew being traded. I meant Bridgewater being traded by the Panthers. Sorry, guys. Having a bad one, but not half as bad as what Miami's been having over the last while. They're on a 6-game skid. And let's not forget, this is the second meeting of these two teams this year. What happened in the first one? Oh, that's right. The Bills blanked Miami 35-zip for the worst loss in 112 or 115 matchups between these two teams. Like the worst loss in history they'd ever delivered on the Miami Dolphins. It's pretty simple at the moment. Not only is there this 6-game skid, but bear in mind as well, the Bills are the ones that stopped Miami getting to the playoffs last season. They knocked them out in an absolute walkaway victory when they'd even rested most of their starters for the second half of the game. Flores is fighting for his job. This game isn't going to depend on his job or not. It's going to be the next couple of games, which are all very winnable after that. And if you're looking, Bills fans, for a bit of positivity or another thing to be positive about, what happened to you last season? You had a crushing loss on the Hail Murray, had a bye, and then went on to win 8 straight games. This season, you've had a crushing loss against the Titans with that mess up at the end of the game. You've got a bye. Oh, maybe they might just go on a nice little winning streak. Certainly Miami is going to be the starter for that, for a nice little win. 8 in a row. Maybe again.
There's Keith Collins. Don't remind me, man.
Right.
Just adding to what Mark said there now, 35-zip, which was at the start of, the middle of September. Going back to the last game in Buffalo between the two teams, the Bills still won by 30-odd points, 56-26. Even with Mike Gesicki, even with Jalen Waddle, even with Tua, maybe turning up a wee bit, the Bills are winning this game. Like they have too much talent on the offense. Here's the thing, though. I did see a stat, and I wish I had it here now. Tua's his stats are getting better individually as a quarterback over the last couple of games. He's fighting for his life. I don't believe a trade will happen with Deshaun Watson. I think it's all ploppity plop. It's like pre-election talk over here in Europe or in the UK, wherever, people may promise to say this is going to happen, this is going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. Preferably, I don't want to go on live on a trade deadline show on Tuesday. That's my personal opinion. But if I'm Tua, I'm fired up.
Look, maybe we will be doing a trade deadline show on Tuesday if there's a lot of movement, but it's hard to. Well, I just find it very difficult to see whatever team. I know it's Miami in particular that seems to be the front runners to get the deal done, but it's hard to gauge what any team and general manager would give away so much because the asking price hasn't dropped, but yet they're not going to know. And by all accounts, these 22 cases aren't going to be dealt with until the season is over. And Goodell last week kind of, to a certain extent, wiped his hands of it and to say, yeah, if he's traded, he's playing because. We're not dealing with this until the end of the season. So, interesting.
Yeah, but, I mean, I keep coming back to this one thing about Deshaun Watson, okay? Even if none of this is proven true from a criminal perspective and he did nothing legally wrong, he hasn't disavowed the facts, the basic facts of the case, which involve him clearly seeking massages every 10 seconds in all these different locations and putting himself in a position where he's one-on-one with a young female in a questionable position. That is not the type of leadership you would like to be seeing, even if, and of course he's entitled to presumption of innocence, that nothing criminal or untoward ever occurred in relation to it. I don't know, Michael, maybe I've got just too much music. The last couple of shows we had ABBA. We finished off the other night with a bit of George Michael. I had Dire Straits on earlier on, great band, by the way, and the song Money for Nothing came on. And I don't know why, when the lyric, I get my money for nothing and my chicks for free came on, I thought it was Deshaun Watson. It just, popped into my head. What can I say?
I will say that I don't think it should happen without the cases being resolved. And I think for ignoring the Watson situation, which just shouldn't, like, with 22 cases outstanding. But for Tua, it would be good for Tua to get more of an opportunity in Miami to see, what he's capable of. It could be that Miami at the end of the season, it's a Josh Rosen type situation and Miami are moving on anyway. But I think it would be really unfair on Tua, with all the hanging over Watson's head, to bring him in right now. But again, this is a situation that the league should be and have dealt with in the past, where there have been allegations. We saw it with Ben Roethlisberger. So Roger Goodell is capable of doing it when he wants to do it.
I also think, it's a difficulty with taking. Well, you're getting a substantial amount of picks back. You don't really know where those picks are going to be within the draft. So, when it comes to the end of the season and teams start coming in making you offers, it's a little bit easier to start dealing with a team who's in the top 10 of the draft. I know obviously you're picking up other draft picks from other trades that have gone down the line, but it's a lot easier for Houston to start working on a plan going forward when they know they're getting the pick from whatever particular team in the top 10. Right now, they don't know what they're going to get. The Dolphins could go in and run and finish with Watson that whatever, and they end up getting their 14 or 15 pick,
Yeah, but I'm going to give a movie reference. So Brian, I know you haven't seen it, but boys, did you ever see the movie Draft Day? The god-awful movie about the NFL draft with Kevin Costner?
What a great movie that was.
Did see that.
But with Houston, Miami, if Houston and Miami did formulate a trade, they can literally turn around to Miami, like Kevin Costner said, and say, give me my goddamn picks back. Because they got fleeced by Miami before with Laramie Tunsil. So it's kind of a case of, well, maybe what goes around comes around ultimately is what Houston might think in relation to it. But Carolina could be looking for a quarterback. Philadelphia could be looking for a quarterback. Plenty of teams in the offing, come the off season again.
So the difficulty, sorry, I know we keep going on, but we want to get back to the games. It's come out this week that he said, he has this clause in the contract that he can rebuff the trades, and basically he decides where he wants to go. And he's made it very clear that he wants to go to Miami and Miami only.
But we all want to go to Miami, Mr. 305, etc., Mr. Worldwide. We get it. The reality is it's still hot in Houston. And just in regards to the other comments, the Irish NFL show has no affiliation with the National Football League and wants to go to the LA in Super Bowl in February. So Godspeed. And also on draft day, no matter what, I find out very quickly. That's how skilled I am. Great movie. No spoilers. Fonte Mac, no matter what, Brent. That's
you didn't think on the anniversary of the 1 year since we started the show, you'd be talking about massages, but anyway, maybe we'll start moving on to the next game.
The show was everything tonight. It really does. 1 year on. Conor Hagan, I presume it's Hagan, that said HGN, Wild Tyrone surname, All-Ireland champion, put a comment on saying there, what's your thoughts regarding the Bears? Well, let's talk about the Bears. Let's talk about the 49ers. 49ers 2-4 against the Bears 3-4. Colin, some good news for Bears fans. First off, Matt Nagy isn't on the sideline this weekend. But bad news, it's the Chicago Bears going up against the 49ers. What's your thoughts in this game?
I would take you back to the mid-'80s and to 1984, the championship game, Candlestick Park. And the 49ers beat the Bears 23-0. But what I suppose that game is best remembered for is the Angus backfield. And the guard, Guy McIntyre, and Bill Walsh used him. And the 49ers taunted the Bears afterwards, told them, next time, bring your offense. Well, fast forward to October 1985, regular season game. And the Bears put a beat down on the 49ers, 26-10. The Bears, obviously, that season went on to win the Super Bowl. But that game was best remembered for the first time that the fridge carried the football. And Ditka was making a point. There was no love lost at that time between Ditka and Bill Walsh. The halcyon days for both of these franchises, and I imagine fans of both would be wishing that it was back to those sorts of days. And wouldn't it be nice to see the likes of a Joe Montana up against a ferocious Bears defense? But that's not the case. We have Justin Fields and Jimmy G. I don't know what the point for the 49ers is in terms of continuing with Jimmy G. We saw Trey Lance this week, or our friend Michael Lombardi had the video of if Trey Lance has a knee sprain. That is ridiculous because Kyle Shanahan was trying to play it down. And you showed the video, Michael, of Joe Judge the other week and about his player in pads. Well, Kyle Shanahan was very similar because he's trying to say that Lance has a knee sprain and there's Nads doing all sorts of moves that you wouldn't even see in coppers. So I think it's going to be an interesting game because I think neither of these teams are playing well. Fields has really struggled. He hasn't been helped by his coaches in any way, shape, or form. He has two touchdowns, 6 interceptions over the course of his starts. Look, he was up against a stout Bucs defense, and in the last game, and you almost felt sorry for him coming off because nothing just seems to be going. Bears. I'm kind of torn on who to go with because in some ways, if the 49ers should have a better coaching staff and better roster, but it just feels like something isn't right there, and the way in which they're kind of utilizing their roster doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Some of the decisions they're making. They struggled against Jonathan Taylor, and we saw Khalil Herbert has done very well in coming in for the Bears. So I can make a case in both ways. Do you know what? I'll go Bears. I'll go Bears to surprise it and go to 400. And Kyle Shanahan to be forced to put Trey Lance in because I really don't see what's left to be gained with Jimmy G.
It's been a year, Colin, but you got really snappy at those intros. That's really quick. Yeah.
Really snappy. Colin, can I ask a quick question? You said about the refrigerator. Who was that? Is it because he's cool? Yeah, or what's it? No.
Colin, I thought you were trying to talk yourself out of making a pick for this game completely the way you were going on there. You know,
it's like I don't want to make a pick.
Just forget about this one.
Like,
you said Matt Nagy's not going to be available for the game because of COVID. Well, another player who's really crucial to the Bears on defense is Khalil Mack, and he's not going to play in this game either. And they've had in the 3 wins they've had, the 3 wins so far, they've had 7 takeaways, and in the 4 defeats they've had 1. This team with the situation with the offense and Justin Fields, this team is all about their defense. If the defense plays well, they're going to be in a game. They didn't play well last week. The Bears were blown off. The doors were blown off by the Bucs. And the Bears offense hasn't had a plus 200-yard game yet this season. That hasn't happened since 2008. And the last team was the Tennessee Titans. So for me, despite the 4 losses in a row for the 49ers, this game for me kind of reminds me of that week 2 game where the 49ers went into Philadelphia. They didn't play amazing. They just did enough to get over the line and win the game. That's the type of game I see. It could be a low-scoring game with the 49ers just having enough.
Yeah, this could be a really ugly game. We're alluding to the Bears' struggles. Obviously, that infamous game was against the Browns or the Bengals, but when they had the 47 net yards for the entire game, when you took off the sacks they conceded. Justin Fields hasn't been the starter for every one of the Bears games, but somehow he's leading the league in one thing, which is the number of sacks taken in 22 in his short time as a starter. I mean, if you average 5.4 over the next, 10 games, then, David Carr's all-time record with the Houston Oilers back in the day, Houston Texans, will be at risk of 76 sacks in a single season. That's the Bears' fatal flaw. Their offensive line still isn't very good. They still haven't addressed it. They still have got problems there. And the campaign to free the Chicago One may continue. Colin, certainly in the last couple of games, he's barely been targeted as well, which probably hasn't helped matters either. But there are flaws on both these sides. Actually, the one flaw of the 49ers that keeps going, I feel, unreported is their D-backs don't know what the rules are on pass interference. Like in that game against the Colts exploited the fact, just chuck the ball up in the air because the D-backs are going to tackle the receiver and give you 3 yards on pass interference nearly every time. The 49ers are way in the lead in terms of pass interference penalties given up. So maybe that's going to be the tactic tonight. Just throw the ball wildly in the air down the field, Justin Fields, if you're given enough time not to die, and then maybe you'll generate offense in that way, exploiting their tendency in this regard. Look, I picked the 49ers last week. I am not as down on them as many of you are, I know, so I'm going with them again. I can't trust the Bears. I don't think anybody should trust the Bears at the moment. Until Nagy and Pace are gone, no one believes in the Bears, and poor old Justin Fields deserved better to start off his professional career.
Live, mute, sorry, podcast listeners. Poor old Justin Fields. Justin Fields is literally the second coming if you're walking through Chicago, boys. Let's just put that out there. But this game has it all. The 49ers, the Bears, it just gets me going, boys, you know. Yes, like this game is probably the game of the week. No, it's not. Jimmy Garoppolo, if he plays, 3-8 last week. Sorry, 3 for 8, 27 yards, one interception, 1 fumble. He'll still win this game if he plays. The 49ers are going to beat the Bears. Justin Fields is going to have a bad day at the office. He won't have enough protection. And also, Khalil Mack being out is enough for me. I'm taking the Bears to fall to 3-5. I'm going to go with the 49ers to go 3-4. And I'm not going to say blow the NFC West wide open because that's not going to happen. But the 49ers will win this game. And I think Trey Lance will be the starter next week. Just putting that out there. Any further points? Have I annihilated the Bears fans, or is that bad? Or what's the...
The only thing I'd say in the Justin Fields situation is, you know, we all thought it would be a bit of a, you know, difficult start, but more so because of what he's got around. The offensive line has been, you know, struggling for this year, struggled last year. Jenkins was selected in the second round. For a long time, people felt that they would have taken him in the fourth round. He's not. He's out pretty much for Sable, and they brought in some experienced players, but they've been around the league for so long, and they're old, and you know, struggling for. And there we go.
But Brian, I mean, that comes back to roster construction by Pace.
Absolutely.
That comes back to coaching by Nagy in terms of at least trying to coach around that or give some support to him. They don't lean on the running game as much as they should, and they're not giving him the best chance to succeed. So, yeah, I mean, that's why I say poor old Justin Fields, because any rookie quarterback can thrive or die depending on the environment they're put into. And at the moment, he's definitely not being given an opportunity to thrive.
And Michael, I know you're working on the 5-hour, 6-hour live show for the draft already, which is great to see the preparation well in advance. But just one thing I should tell you now, the Bears don't have a number 1 pick next year.
I think what's great about Chicago is, and I look at Daniel Jones in New York as a good example as well. Seriously, you know, they're giving him time. They're giving him enough time to see if he's going to be good. Daniel Jones is in a situation where it doesn't matter how he plays the rest of the year. He'll play the whole of next season probably again because he's getting better. Justin Fields will be given 2 or 3 years because a competent management in a team will give somebody the time to see how far it goes. And yeah, so that's just my point.
Sorry, did you say competent management and the Bears in the same sense?
I think he's referring to the next lot who come in.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's fair enough.
Sorry, Michael.
Well, it's better than the management my team has, but it's all good. Ready to move on? Okay. I'm not going to say game of the week, but I need one more chance to play this. Yeah, this could become a thing now on the show. The Steelers 3-3, the Browns 4-3. Fred Flunk first off saying, "I'm late to the show." Sorry, Fred. We literally just went live for the crack. Congrats on your 1 year.
He must have been out chasing seagulls this evening. They were chasing the Liverpool defense this afternoon.
Oh, well done, excellent. No idea what you're talking about, but all good. The Steelers and the Browns. Column, who have you got now? Look, the Irish NFL show column has no affiliation with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Although we've had the Rooney family on, we will give a biased and unpopular view of this game today.
And unbiased, I assume.
Yeah.
What I said on our show on Monday night, I gave my thoughts on the Mike Tomlin situation and being linked with a college job and how ridiculous that was. But Mike Tomlin made some very interesting comments. Perhaps I don't think he meant it as a slight, but did he unintentionally give the game away about Baker Mayfield when he said he doesn't really think it matters who's at quarterback for the Browns? Because the team is essentially the same, whether it was Baker or whether it's Case Keenum. And it will be Baker, but I think for Baker Mayfield, you've got to hope for him that he can not going to take another knock to that shoulder. So that O-line is going to be really important that they do their job. And I think it's telling. And there's that. Do you pay Baker? Do you pay him the $40 million a year? And what impact does that have on the Browns? The Browns' running game is unbelievable. Made a mockery of a vaunted Denver defense with Dearness Johnson, who's their third choice running back. So if they can get Chubb back, then that's obviously much stronger. The Steelers still get to the QB, but they don't exactly have the steel curtain anymore. The Steelers have their own issues in terms of the run game, and we know that they've had issues trying to get Najee Harris to, the yards. They've got him involved. I don't think anyone in the league has been more involved. And that's good that they found ways to involve him in the pass game, because he's very, very talented, unbelievably so. But the Browns are very strong against the run. They're solid against the pass. Big Ben has been sacked 12 times in 6 games. The worry for the Browns, I think, is their injury report. It seems like every week they add people to it, though apparently they are getting guys back, and they will have their right tackle back for this. Again, this is another game I could see going any which way, because of I think the Browns need this, and I'm going to go with them. But I do think that Tomlin will keep the Steelers. I think Tomlin has another season where he goes to 500. I think the Steelers will be okay, but I'm going to go with the Browns for this just.
Colin touches on the Browns and how efficient their run game is, and it's been predominantly with Hunt and Chubb. Chubb's going to play, Hunt isn't going to play. But Ernest Johnson came in last week, and again, the game plan is let's work with the run game. And he had over 100 yards, 137 yards, which was, for me, it was a bit disappointing in terms of how the Broncos handled them, in particular that last drive. But anyway, the point being, they're really efficient. The run game, I'm against them on this game. I'm going with the Steelers. I think Big Ben. I'm pleasantly surprised by how well they've reacted to the adversity this season. They were 1-3. They beat the Broncos at home, and then they went and beat the Seahawks. I know it was Geno Smith, but Big Ben didn't show any interceptions in those games, and they're currently going about the business. This week, Tomlin, this whole speculation about moving on, which we know is good Alfred, which we knew was a bit off-putting, and he handled it very well. So I think he's got a point to prove again this week, and I think this is a big game for the Steelers, because they win, they go 4-3 and potentially back in the wildcard slots. And they haven't lost 3 games against the Browns since 1986 and 1989. So for me, Steelers to cause the upset. I'm sorry, one more, Mark. Sorry. Baker Mayfield is playing injured. I'm not sure that's the right thing. The Steelers defense on their day can get the quarterbacks.
Yeah, Mayfield is a worry in this game, Brian. And for all the talk about Tomlin, obviously this week with the press conference and the record he's had, today or tomorrow, if he wins, he actually equals Coach Cowher for the number of wins, who we've also had on the show in our first year. But he would equal Coach Cowher for the second most wins, obviously behind the legendary Chuck Noll as a Steelers coach. So, that will be a great achievement, I'm just watching Michael pour this and waiting to see him pour it all over himself, actually. That would be quite amusing to be on live. But the Steelers are also dealing with the loss of Juju for the year now. And the obvious replacement is Chase Claypool. I think everybody remembers his 4-touchdown game last season, but he's been so erratic and inconsistent outside of that, especially this season. So can you truly rely on him? Can they truly rely upon that receiving core? I was laughing, Brian. I was kind of annoyed because 1989 was exactly what I was going to bring up. I was going to point out that 1989 wasn't just the year that Hiro Hotu died. It wasn't just the year that J.J. Watt and Taylor Swift were born. It wasn't the year of a great pop album by Taylor Swift, actually, as well. We could have a whole Taylor Swift thing again, because I think we did that last year. Wasn't just the year that Ronald Reagan passed over the presidency to George Bush. Wasn't just the year of the Tiananmen Square protests. Sorry, that's what I meant to say there. But it was also the year that the Browns last beat the Steelers 3 games in a row. And obviously, on the back of the 24-22 game that got them into the playoffs, on the back of the playoff win last year, and on the back of tomorrow's game, they are going to win, and they are going to beat the Steelers 3 times in a row once again.
It was also the year I think that Mickey Thomas scored the winner on Anfield in the last minute. To
I
win the
wasn't going to
league.
bring that up, Brian, but if you want
Boys,
to,
can we
the
talk
Alan
about
Smith
something
in
that
the 51st
for my
minute and the Michael Thomas in the
Say it,
91st
say it.
minute? Yeah.
I was 11. I was 11. That was a good evening. Friday night.
I remember watching that screaming around the house. I was delighted.
Sorry,
with
Michael.
that game. I think
Was
it's
that on your
also the year
wireless? Yeah.
That one's for
Michael-
Fred.
Tell you what, instead of putting on Athlone, can we turn off Athlone? Yeah. I just want to first off just state that this segment is not presented by Guinness NitroSurge. But we'd be more than happy to.
Looks like he's brought a little penguin into the house to pour us.
A little penguin is my new best friend. First off, just want to thank and congratulate the Cleveland Browns for an incredible performance last Thursday night. The Cleveland Browns, boys, beat a Denver team that were 3-0, and that had been one of the big hype teams in the AFC over the last 7 or 8 months. So fair play. And I also picked up that third running back in my fantasy team. So I was very conflicted last Friday morning. The reality is, it doesn't matter if Baker Mayfield's injured. Case Keenum's went out and beat the Denver Broncos, boys. The Denver Broncos, the defense for the Denver Broncos. So they shouldn't have an issue against the Steelers this weekend. But in all seriousness, I love the depth in this Browns team. I love the fight in this Browns team. I think the Steelers have come back and done really well as well from all that adversity, what you mentioned on, Brian. But I think the Browns will get the win. Nick Chubb, just give the ball to Nick Chubb. You don't need to do anything else. Just give it over to Nick Chubb. It'll be fine. No problem at all. But it will be interesting. If Baker Mayfield goes off injured, then I don't know.
So I'm the only one going with the Steelers, yeah?
Seems like it, boy. Seems like it.
Okay.
Any final points on that before we move on?
No, I think that's. I think we've all given a fair reflection of why we think certain teams will win the game. It could come down to these games. With the exception of that playoff game, like, in fairness, most of these games over the years have been reasonably close. So, despite the records at times.
Yeah. Okay. Brian's going to be looking out for TJ Watt to have a day now. I'm going to be wearing his TJ Watt jersey, cheering it on. Fred, I'm sorry you're not over that goal. I'm not over it either. I still reminisce about it many
Mark's
years.
going to watch Fever Pitch later on. Michael probably still hasn't heard that film.
Christ. I can't believe it's not Michael. You weren't even around in '89. Jesus.
Apparently, I was named after him. I'm keeping told up by my father. So,
Michael, just one thing. Myles Garrett has said he plans to give Big Ben a big send-off in what is very likely to be Big Ben's last trip to Cleveland as a Steeler.
Let's see what happens. You never know. He could be there again in January. Let's see what happens. But yeah, interesting in that sense. Boys, let's move on. I'm really annoyed that I didn't get to use my buzzer for this one because this one's a hell of a game. You could have 2-5 Philadelphia Eagles going to Detroit and playing the 0-7 Detroit Lions, who, Colin, to be fair to the Lions, for 25 minutes last Sunday, they shut me up big time. I was getting scared. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, they were gamey, certainly, and they went for it. They pulled out all the tricks, but ultimately they fell short. Jared Goff threw 2 interceptions. He has 1 touchdown and 4 interceptions in his last 3 games. He's been sacked 17 times in 7 games. If the Lions had, potentially a different QB, maybe it'd be a little bit different, but they're going to have Jared Goff tomorrow. Lots of people are saying it could be the Lions' first win. I don't see it. I think that the Eagles showed you in week 1 that if they're up against a bad defense, Jalen Hurts is a decent QB. He's 10 touchdowns and 4 interceptions on the season. I mean, if you have a look around the league, that's not terrible. He's yet to prove that he's a franchise QB, but Nick Sirianni is yet to prove that he's a franchise head coach. The Eagles have issues, especially on defense, right? I heard Sam Monson describe them as the most vanilla defense in the league, and I think that's probably true, but I don't think the Lions are able to exploit that. There's also been talk about benching Hurts, and I don't see what you get. Gardner Minshew is who's going to come in. We know who Gardner Minshew is. He's not a franchise QB either. You've yet to find out about Hurts. I think you run it with Hurts, and you make a decision at the end of the season. I think, unfortunately for the Lions, I'm sure they'll be up for it because they play hard for Dan Campbell, but I think they're going to 0-8.
Colin called out the stats that the horses had this season. It's not just the stats though, Colin. It's the overall play that outside the stats, because I'm not saying what you're saying. I really am. I'm seeing a quarterback he's not fit for purpose in this league, and it's not because I'm a Giants fan. I don't like the Eagles. That I'm just, the reality is having watched that game more so last week than any other game in the 9 o'clock slot. And maybe it's there. Maybe you're right. Maybe it is down to Sirianni. But then on defense, you're saying about the vanilla situation. They didn't change the game plan last week. They haven't changed the game plan in any game. They did the same in Dallas. They just allowed Dallas to go up and down the field on them. And I think the Lions went up and down the field to a certain extent on the Rams last week, and they failed to win that game because they were 0 for 5 in the red zone. But I don't think that Eagles defense is strong enough. And I'm going to pick the Lions here. I think they've come out of that game last week. They were unfortunate. They played really well. They certainly are playing for the coach, and they probably should have won by now. I mean, that field goal with the Ravens, I mean, how often do you see things like that? And for me, Swift, the running back, is having a good season. He scored in 6 of the 7 games. He's not really talked about because they keep losing all these games. So for me, I don't even think it's going to be an upset, to be honest. I don't think it's a Monday evening on a show you go, oh my God, the Lions won. If they win, yeah, you mightn't pick them, but I don't see it as a major shock. In fact, 94% on Monday evening, 90% of the betting money on Monday had already gone on the Lions to beat the Eagles. So for me, it's not going to be a shock. I think the Lions will win.
Michael, you can sound the klaxon for one thing. There's a reunion klaxon in this game. Yeah, I mean, Darius Slay, if you remember back in the day, he left the Lions in less than happy circumstances, basically forcing his way out of the organization. He went to the Eagles. This is actually the first time he's going to be playing against his old team. So he's going to be motivated. The problem isn't necessarily going to be him. It's going to be the rest of this team. I'm with Brian 100% on the Jalen Hurts piece. He is not a functioning, good enough, suitable quarterback at the professional game. If you look at his last 3 games, he's barely completed 50% of his passes, and the entirety of the Eagles stats keep getting inflated by garbage time. They've scored 7 touchdowns when they've already been down by 19 points in the second half. I mean, they are the very definition of meaningless points at that point in time. And yet, but maybe Nick Sirianni is equally to blame in this regard. But until I see Hurts, and to an extent, we had the same conversation with Tua, throw consistently more than 15 yards down the field, I'm not going to believe that he has enough to make it as a professional quarterback, nor am I going to believe that defenses are going to respect him enough. Because they'll know if they take away the middle, if they take away his threat and running, that they can contain him. This is exactly the Lamar Jackson game plan, but in fact, he is nothing like Lamar Jackson with his legs, nor with his arm in relation to it. On the flip side, Brian called out in detail Derek Carr's figures. I think it was. You called out Carr's figures against the Eagles, wasn't it? We had
90.9% completion rate on that Sunday.
Which is super impressive. 31 to 34, I think it was, wasn't it? For 323 and 3 TDs. Yeah, that's super impressive. It would be even more impressive if it wasn't against the Eagles, because everyone completes against them. Quarterbacks are completing nearly 75% of their passes against the Eagles. This defense isn't just vanilla. It's chocolate, it's strawberry, it's a combination of ice cream to give you a lovely little treat at the end of the day if you're a quarterback, because they ain't going to bloody stop you at any point along the way. The all-time NFL record for a season, by the way, in completions is actually held by the Lions, that they gave up about 72.7, I think it is, 72.7% of the passes in an entire season. The Eagles are putting that at risk. The Eagles are not a good team. And the Lions, I mean, maybe I just like the plucky underdogs. I do think they fought so hard this season. Look at how many games they've lost on last-minute field goals. I even picked them the other week against the Bengals when we were in London because I thought they were building momentum. I can't trust the Eagles on this. I do trust what Campbell and the Lions have been doing and how hard they've been playing. And I'm with Brian. I'm actually on the Lions on this one to beat the Eagles.
Michael? Get the REM album out tomorrow even. Everybody hurts.
Who's REM?
Come on, me.
If you believe that there's a man on the moon, you believe the Lions can win against the Eagles, fair play to you. I actually like Nick Sirianni. I like his offensive strategy, gentlemen. But I think, look at Jalen Hurts. He still scored 2 touchdowns last week. Regardless for his crap stats last week, he still scored 2 touchdowns, right? He's going up against Jared Goff and the Lions. I think if he can get 2, or you know what, let's give him another one because it's the Lions, right? Because let's be honest, the Eagles will get to Goff considerably during this game. In my opinion, I think they will. He's the 4th most pressure quarterback. I think he's in for a bad day on Sunday. Let's say the Eagles score 2 or 3 touchdowns. Will the Lions score 3 touchdowns with DeAndre Swift? Will it?
Yeah, I believe so against the Eagles defense. Yeah.
I don't, to be honest. Like even if Swift was to get 2 rushing touchdowns, I can't see them scoring over 20 points. I can see the Eagles getting there. And in terms of talking about the offensive strategy, boys, like they have the 9th highest blitz rate in the NFL on one side of the ball, but they've got a lot of injuries. But the Eagles have a chance, boys, against a Lions team that shouldn't be even bothering the rest of the season. Come on, seriously? Do you agree with that or not?
Well, I think they've got a head coach that is probably not looking too far ahead, and he wants them to play hard and win games and see what comes of it. Because I think it's one of those situations they'll probably look ahead come week 12, week 13. But
I mean, look at it this way, Michael. They don't want to go 0-16, and any game you play against the NFC East has to be considered a winnable game. So that's why they've got a chance, but they've got a real good chance to be shiny, happy people come Monday morning. So.
Shiny, happy people. There's a comment here as well. A column saying Sirianni doesn't have a strategy. 0 run game, high school offense. Jordan.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's why I think that I'm not saying, as I said, I think the jury is still out on Jalen Hurts. But what's the point in bringing in Gardner Minshew? You're not going to learn anything about that. At least with Hurts, there's some sort of potential there for him to do something. The Eagles are going to have a whole host of picks come the end of the season, and they're going to have very high picks, so they can make decisions on what they want to do. But bringing in Gardner Minshew is going to do nothing other than a bit like Ryan Fitzpatrick. People love the looks. They love a bit the very sexy facial hair, and he's made a fortune. If Ryan Fitzpatrick hadn't grown a beard, this Fitz magic, Fitz tragic wouldn't exist. It's a business decision. He's made a lot of money of it. Gardner Minshew's done the same thing. If we're talking about Jalen Hurts not being a professional quarterback, Gardner Minshew's a professional model and basically made a whole load of money off of that. So I think it's ridiculous to say that you should bench Hurts, run with Hurts, see what happens, and at the end of the season, maybe you're getting rid of a QB and a HC.
Yeah, but I mean, that's it, Colin. I'm not saying bench him. I'm just saying I don't think he's good enough. And if you think the jury's still out, as far as I'm concerned, the jury's convicted. You'll have to do your best Henry Fonda in 12 Angry Men to talk the rest of us round on that one, I think, by the end of the season.
I saw Trevor Siemian be the starting quarterback of a franchise for 2 years. 2 years he was given. So to me, Jalen Hurts deserves at least this year.
That's all right. I have just one thing to say.
Hey, baby, you want to come take a ride with the Mississippi Mud Flat?
Yes, I do. I think next week it could be very interesting in Philly.
You've not seen that video before, Mark, no?
I don't know what just happened. So
as somebody that paid £265 sterling in the Queen's English to sit in the first section or whatever to see the Texans against the Jaguars and try to explain to my father who Gardner Minshew was and why he was so awesome because he had a moustache. I'm really pulling for him because I need him to do well in this league now. Let's just say that.
Mud flaps, massages, and sexy beards. What a way to celebrate your 1 year anniversary.
Okay.
So, Michael, who are you going for?
I think the Eagles are 3.5 favorites. I think they'll cover that comfortably, to be honest. So hold on, Colin, are you going for
No,
I'm going for the Eagles.
Who would have thought? Who would have thought this game would have? We probably discussed this game in depth more than any other game so far. Who would have thought this would be the game?
Well, I tell you that I'll take you that, and I'll raise you the Texans going up against the Rams in Houston. Hell of a game, boys. We got the 6-1 Rams against the 1-6 Houston Texans. Colin, who we got?
I'd be nice to Fred, right? Because David Culley says he has a plan for Aaron Donald. And I'm wondering, I heard that, and I wondered if it was similar to Alex Ferguson's plan for Barcelona, because after Barcelona beat Manchester United in 2009 in the European Cup final, Fergie said he had a plan. Well, 2011 happened, and I didn't see much of a plan. And I think for poor old Cully and the Texans, it's going to be similar when it comes to stopping Aaron Donald. I don't think it's going to be possible. We had Brandon Cooks publicly stating his unhappiness with them trading away his running back during the week, and after their opening day win, it's just been a world of pain for the Texans, really. Other than Davis Mills had a nice performance in the against the Patriots, they still lost, and Davis Mills threw for 130 yards last week. So if we're talking about QBs that aren't fit for the league, the Texans need to sort that out. They're going up against Stafford, who has Cup and who's playing unbelievably, but Robert Woods is flying under the radar somewhat. And I think Stafford is going to have a day. I don't think that the only way to really get at the Rams that we've seen is on the ground, and I don't think the Texans have anything there. The issue will be complacency, I think, for the Rams, but they should move to 7-1 at the end of this game.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched the Texans last week. I know they were 5-0 up, and for a long time they were in the game, and then they got the doors blown off them. It's very hard to see how they can do anything similar to a certain extent. Aaron Donald, I touched on last Monday's show. I think he felt I was being a bit critical of this, but he's only had 3.5 sacks this season. It's the worst since 2016 in terms of his career. I'd imagine by tomorrow evening, he will have probably double that, because he's going to have, I'd imagine he'll have a field day against this Texans offensive line. And, Cup, Stafford, 90% completion rate on balls down the field beyond 30-40 yards. I can't see how they're not going to put up a big score on them. I don't even know what the 9 is. Is it 20 points, something like that? It's hard to see how the Texans can remain competitive in this game, especially when now we're seeing as the next few days go on. Whatever player gives them a glimmer of hope, they're trading away. And once Mark Ingram isn't top-notch running back anymore, he probably was to a certain extent a really good running back in the day. He's been traded to the Saints. They're cleaning the house already. I'd imagine there'll be a few more gone before the deadline at 8 o'clock our time Tuesday evening. Rams all day for me.
I love Anthony's comment, Davy Johnson to roll back the years in this one. Like that, yeah. Okay. I mean, Anthony, the Texans are averaging about 3.3 yards per carry. They don't have a run game to speak of. Their only offense goes by the name of Brandon Cooks, who, as Colum's already alluded to, is not best pleased with them, and is certainly, given his base salary, as we talked about on Thursday Night Football, on the potential to be on the trading block as well, given for any contender. Texans are going to trade everyone and anyone. They are going to be so keen to make an impression on future teams. I think that the team are going to continue to play hard. They could make a dent on the Rams' offensive line, particularly if Andrew Whitworth still is hampered or doesn't start because he's been limited all week, and they may just blitz away at Matt Stafford. But with Cooper Kupp, with Robert Woods, with the talent that he has in the wide receiver position, I think he'll be able to comfortably deal with that. For me, the most fascinating thing about this whole matchup isn't actually... It's actually an off the ball story, although we're going to see it on the field. Last week, not just was Mark Ingram traded, but Kenny Young was traded by the Rams. That's their starting linebacker. So then they're going to bank on a guy called Ernest Jones. He's a rookie. He's only had about 45 snaps all season long to fill in as a starter for the rest of the season. Now, they've saved $1.3 million on the cap, and you could say it's a cap saving space move, but it's a very strange move given that this is your window. This is what you expect. And it is someone who started all 7 games for you already. So I don't know. That's a bit bizarre, and seeing how that operates, it's a good game to warm him into his starting position, shall we say. But it's certainly something that they are going to be watching, or I'm going to be watching carefully. Do I think the Texans can exploit it? No. Do I think the Rams are -16, Brian? I think the line is. are going to be good value at that? Actually, yes, because this could be very, very, very ugly. Rams all the way, every day, by at least 3 touchdowns.
Can I just ask Brian if he's going to open a beer? Can he go on mute? We do put on full screen.
I thought that's why you were here to do the production work. Muting.
Well, just while you're sorting that out, just to say on Kenny Young, Joe Rolls did a deep dive on this, and while he started off the season and was playing pretty much every down, after their loss to the Cards, he began to lose playing time, and he really became more of ultimately a rotation player. So I think it was probably a little bit on the cap, but also they felt that there were others who could come in. Now, will that be a mistake? Potentially, and we'll see. But I think there was to do a deep dive on it. It seems like they were already beginning to phase him out. So probably to get something for a player who you feel you weren't necessarily going to use. I can see, I guess, why they did it.
But Colin, wasn't it like a 7th rounder in 2024 or something like that? Like,
yeah,
I can't remember, but it's ridiculously, it's worse than a packet of peanuts type of thing. I find it bizarre based on where they are, knowing he's at least a stable pair of hands. What if somebody got injured, even if you're going to put him to the back of the rotation, having known the defense and all? I just wonder, is there something else there? That's all, because it's just a bit strange. But look, that's how bad the Rams-Texans game is. We're talking about a mid-season trade of a very limited linebacker that not many people have heard of before, because we're struggling to find things to talk about. Rams to win the game. Michael, assume you're picking the Rams. Do you want to move on?
Let's not be so sure. Let's hear the preview. Just going on what Colin said at the start. He was talking about week 1. What a glorious week that was.
What are you talking about?
That went really well. And the Texans really, boys, haven't been the same since. And it's hard to believe the Jaguars team that we've seen in London got beat by that Texans team now, which is just mad to say. Look, I would rather take a ride with the Mississippi Mudflap than watch this game. This game will be over 5 minutes in. I am going to take the over on this, presented by Matchbook Betting Exchange. I have no idea what the over is, but I will go as far as saying that the Rams are going to score over 40 on Sunday. And I don't think this will be a contest. I think the Texans will be booed off the field at halftime. And you would have to start asking questions, because seeing Brandon Cook's tweet was just like what's going on there? It was just nuts. Anyway, we've a lot of games to go through. We've still a load of games to go through here, boys. And
sorry, Michael, don't jump in. The over is 46.5.
I will cover that. Irish NFL show code Matchbook. We'll get back to Matchbook in a wee bit. Here what Brian's or Bino's picks are for the weekend. The Titans 5-2 at the Colts 3-4. Top of Bino. Let's go dandy here, Colin. This is a nice game.
Yeah, 2 in-form teams. Should be a really interesting game. I think Colts in a much better place than they were in week 3 when these sides met, and Carson Wentz in a much better place. He's definitely transformed from the Carson Wentz we saw in Philadelphia last year, who was so careless with the football, who was getting sacked so frequently. Now he has to prove that he can continue to do that, but he's been playing really well, and he played decently. A couple of plays that you'd worry about, as Mark said, he kind of just threw it up there at times, but it was a rainstorm in San Francisco. They've also leaning more into Jonathan Taylor, who you would have to say has become one of the premier running backs in the league. But they're up against a Titans side who, just coming off the back of 2 enormous wins. But it's like the AFC this season. Who really wants it? Because we've seen, I guess, flaws in most of the contenders. And this is the Titans team who lost to the Jets. It seems like Julio will be out, so it's going to be on AJ and Derrick Henry. Can the Titans stop Derrick Henry? They've certainly struggled up to now. But I do think the Colts are improving. They're getting some players back. I think in this game, the Titans are a better team, but I think the Colts need it more. And Brian and I have talked about that over the past few weeks. That essentially the Colts dug themselves into a hole where kind of every game became a playoff game. And I think that the Colts will get the win here and will move back to 4-4.
Yeah, when we were in London, I reflected on the Colts at 1-5 in 2018, and I see the similarities where they went on a run. And since then, they've won 2 games in a row. And if they win this game this week, they've got the Jets next week, not to look too far ahead, and then they got the Jags the week after. So this game, it really is the crunch game. If they were to come out of this game with the 2 games that are ahead of them and potentially win those games, they're right back in the opportunity to win the division. This game for the last 6 games have all revolved around Derrick Henry. It doesn't come as a surprise. He's run for 120 yards average against this Colts defense. And John Taylor, who's looks like he's come to his own in terms of being the lead rusher for this Colts team. He didn't score any touchdowns against this Titans team last year, but I think he's going to correct that. And Wentz, and I touched on it a few weeks ago, despite the loss in Baltimore, like that defeat could have went 2 ways. We've seen teams lose heartbreakers like that where they've had so many points ahead and they've lost games and their season is derailed. In fairness to the Colts, they seem to have taken that game on in terms of, right, we didn't win it. We lost to a really good Ravens team who are going to be challengers, in the playoffs, potentially going deep in the playoffs. And they've looked at that, and I think, and said, look, we're a good team. On our day, we can go up against the best of them. And I'm with Colin. I'm in lockstep with Colin. I think the Colts are going to win this game. This division, year in, year out, has ways of, it's strange. The away team tends to win, and more so than the home team. But for me, I think the Colts are going to just about have enough to win this game. And Wentz, who's thrown 2 touchdowns in him for the last 4 games, no interceptions, has another productive game. Colts.
So actually, if Wentz throws another game with 2 touchdowns and no interceptions, he becomes the first Colts quarterback of all time to have 5 games like that in a row. When you consider the quarterbacks they've had, Manning, Luck, like, I could make a joke here about any other Colts quarterbacks, but I won't. I'll be nice. Well, Johnny U. Okay, I'll be nice. Baltimore Colts back in the day. That's kind of impressive. Jonathan Taylor is a threat. He was a rookie last year and was on a bit of a snap count. I think he only had 7 snaps and won the games against the Titans. So, this is his first baptism really in this particular rivalry. But guys, look at what the Titans have done in the last 2 weeks. Look at what they've done on every single drive. In the last 2 weeks, they've had 13 drives. They've scored on 11 of them. And the only 2 they didn't score on were kneel downs at the end of the half and the end of the game against Buffalo. They are, at the moment, an irresistible force in respect of it. And Mike Vrabel, you might remember he played for a certain team called New England Patriots. But Bill Belichick always talked about division games, locking down the division as what he called a hat and T-shirt game. That if you succeeded in kind of sealing the AFC East, it was a hat and T-shirt. You come back into the locker room and there's like AFC champions. And then hopefully next week it's first seed. And then you get onto the AFC championship, blah, blah, blah. All of that momentum building. In many ways, this is a hat and T-shirt game. Because if they beat the Colts and they've got both games and they've got the tiebreaker over them, the AFC South is almost done on that basis. Because, let's face it, the Jags and the Texans aren't making a move, and they will have enough of an advantage on the Colts. So the Titans are equally motivated in this regard. And for me, based on what they're doing the last couple of weeks, based on the fact that I'm still not convinced by Wentz, I'm still not convinced by the Colts. I do think the way they threw away the Baltimore game was appalling. I think the 49ers game, you consider the weather and things like that, there are different things in play. And so I really don't see them being the same force, the same threat, the same power that the Titans bring to bear. So for me, I'm completely against you guys. I think the Titans are going to take this. Not comfortably. It's a division game. Intra-division games are always tough, but the Titans are going to win.
See, Michael, I picked the Titans against the Bills and the Chiefs, and the Irish Titans promised me some free drink, and it hasn't arrived at my doorstep just yet. So that's why I've shied away from them and gone to the Colts. I'll find some nice Colts fans that will look after me instead.
No, the Titans, the Irish Titans just retweeted this broadcast.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
Gurma, gentlemen, Gurma.
I know.
Also, I was wondering what the free pints tweet was about. So thank you for clearing that up. This, honestly, for me, could be the game of the week. I really like it. I like the way it's set up. But I'm going with Mark, boys. You've pretty much covered all the angles apart from, I don't think anybody's mentioned Derrick Henry in the last 6 minutes.
I said that the Colts
Colin
have
did.
struggled to contain him up in the past, and I think they will again. As I said, I think the Titans are the better team. I think the Colts will win.
But like seeing online, and a lot of people are talking about the Titans injury problems. So the Titans have got like Julio Jones out, for example. They've got like 6 or 7 different injuries. I don't think that's going to be an issue in this game. I really don't. I think this, as Brian said as well, looking at the records for these teams, 5-2 for the Titans. Titans going into this game going, right, let's go 6-2. Let's kill this division off, boys. I genuinely think that's what's going to happen. I think the Titans will win by 10 points, boys. I think the Titans will score over 30 points. And I think it'll be a good game, and it'll go to the 4th, but I think the Titans will pull away.
It really is.
Henry 3 touchdowns.
Sorry, Michael. It really is a make-or-break game. Like Mark's made the point, if the Titans win this game, I wouldn't say they're home and hose, but they're not far off it. And if the Colts were to pull this game out of the bag, well, then they're back within a game potentially, and then with the lineup of games they've got coming up potentially, making a run. Who knows? But so yeah, I agree. I think it is probably arguably the game of the weekend. Certainly one of the most intriguing games.
There's a comment from Betty Swallocks saying Wentz balling. So yeah, look, I like Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz is a Super Bowl champion, and we've also got a great article from Kiefer O'Boyle on the AFC South going out tomorrow morning on our website. Both looking back at Week 7, but looking ahead to Week 8 and this huge game on Sunday between these two games. So make sure to check it out tomorrow morning on our website. Are we ready to move on? Has anybody got any points? Ready to move on? Okay. Cincinnati Bengals.
Sunday, Michael.
All right, well, there's no way it'd be done by 12, but the Bengals are 5-2. The Jets are 1-5. Colin, sell me this game, my friend. Sell me this game.
The Bengals offense, that should sell you. Watching them, they've been brilliant. Jamar Chase is the 3rd Bengal to win an AFC Player of the Week award this season, which tells you just how well the Bengals are playing. Also, this is a Bengals offense that's going up against a Jets team that's been outscored 44-0 in the first quarter of games this season. It's a Jets team that chipped 54 points to a Patriots team who aren't exactly explosive on offense, and going up against a Bengals team who are. It's a Jets team that has allowed 20 sacks in 6 games, and the Bengals sacked Lamar Jackson 5 times. It's a real struggle for the Jets. They've Mike White coming in at QB. I imagine for Robert Saleh, you're looking at it essentially the rest of the season is trying to assess who's worth keeping around for next year, who's worth building around, who do you want to keep in the rebuild, because it is going to be a complete rebuild. And to that point, I would ask, what are they doing bringing in Joe Flacco? It makes no sense to me whatsoever. This is a guy who the Denver Broncos brought in, and when he was asked about mentoring Drew Lock, who the Broncos had just drafted at that point, he had zero interest in doing that. So I don't see what Flacco gives you. I mean, what he's not going to mentor anybody. We've seen the kind of sullen demeanor. If you're the Jets, it's all about assessing for next year. Flacco is not going to be there next season. So I'm really kind of at a loss to understand that. I still have a lot of time for Robert Saleh, but I just think for the Jets, I don't see them being particularly competitive in this as long as the Bengals show up. There will be better days ahead for the Jets, undoubtedly, but this is the Bengals going to 6-2.
Paul saying the Jets will do well to score here. Do you agree with that, Brian?
I don't know if that's probably a little bit harsh, but like White is starting a quarterback, it's going to be a difficult day for them. 1982, the last time the Bengals went into a game as double-digit favourites, and they're 11.5 points on the spread, which is. Thought that was a bit big, to be honest, bearing in mind we've seen some games this season that have been relatively close for teams that are weak. But I think Columns alludes to it in terms of how strong the Bengals are this season, and they're only going in the right direction. And as long as they don't look too far ahead and letdown games and all that because they seem to be a team going in the right direction. And Chase, I mean, how are you going to cover him? And if they do, you've got players such as T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd that are just progressing nicely. So for me, it's the Bengals all day. It's one of those games I think we'll all be in lockstep with one another on this one.
Yeah, I mean, we could start and finish the analysis by just saying Mike White is starting at quarterback and move swiftly on. I mean, look. I mean, when the schedule makers made this game up, you kind of thought, "Oh, Joe Burrow, the sophomore quarterback, going up against Zach Wilson, the number 2 pick from this year." And of course, it hasn't transpired that way. You know, the fact that Zach Wilson isn't playing obviously probably doesn't detract too much because the Jets, just as a team, haven't been playing well. Colm sums it up well. The Jets are very much like the Texans this year in terms of, okay, what are the cornerstones or the pieces we want to build around? We've touched on before, they've got 25% of their roster made up of rookies, half of their roster made up of pros with less than 2 years experience. That's an awful lot of young players that they're trying to assess, they're trying to establish whether or not to keep. And the problem is, by the time you've assessed them, by the time you've then built a bit of a core and built around them, they're already getting towards their second contract and you're already not going to be able to hold on to them at the time. So you end up in this vicious cycle, which it feels like the Jets have been in, you know, outside of the Rex Ryan era, probably since the time of Joe Namath. I think I saw Mike White is going to be the 36th quarterback to start for the Jets since Willie Joe Namath back in the day. I think he's still the only quarterback in the Hall of Fame actually with a losing record, Joe Namath. But there you go. He rightfully is there for his guarantee, if nothing else. Look, on this game itself, Brian, you think the line is too low? I don't. Look at some of the stats involved here. The Jets so far on defense have 0 interceptions, the only team to do so. They're being outscored 44-0 in the first quarter in the games they've played so far. And the Bengals themselves are coming off back-to-back wins of more than 20 points against actually good sides, against sides that deserve to play. Love Teddy's comment, Jets 1, 2, 3 punt. The problem is, I don't think they're always going to get up to 3 because they'll probably turn the ball over on 1 and 2 a few more times than you'd expect. Colin, you're absolutely right. I watched every play last week. The Patriots are not the 2007 Patriots. They're not the 2011 Patriots. They are not an offensive machine designed to blow you out. But my God, it was men against boys in so many respects. And look, don't get me wrong. I hate to see the New York Jets playing bad football. It breaks my heart on a daily basis. But the reality is they are not playing very good football. The Bengals, on the other hand, are on the rise. Fantastic win last week. Yes, don't overlook this game. They've got to show that consistency week in, week out. But my God, they're heroes of force. They're exciting to watch. Joe Burrow is back to being as good as we saw him before his injury last year, and it's great to see. Can't wait for it. Bengals all the way. Keep marching on. Like the Saints go marching on. Sorry, don't know why that comes to mind.
It's happening. It's happening, boys. These Bengals are...
It's happening. They're playing the Jets. Yeah, it's happening. Right.
Oh, wait, are you going to pick the Jets again? This is going to be hilarious. Please do. Go on.
You know, the Patriots game's up next, yeah? So, the Bengals are going to win this. Like, okay, let me just learn from my mistakes in Navan. The reason that the Bengals are going to win this is because they've got a highly powered young offensive team, and I really like the way they play football. The Jets, with Zach Wilson out and having a backup quarterback, are not going to play well, and I would like to see a good competitive close game, but I don't feel that it will be a good competitive close game, which means that the Bengals will win. I'm not sure if the Bengals will win comfortably because the game's I was going to say New York, but it's not New York, it's New Jersey. That's tomato, it's like saying Croke Park's in Meath. It's not. But the reality is the Bengals should win this game. I'm picking the Bengals to win this game, and the Bengals moving to 6-2. And Brian, you've got a point. I don't know if it's about the Giants or the Jets.
No, I was just going to say where I do see the Jets potentially getting the upper hand is on the offensive line. The interior offensive line in particular has been quite weak for the Bengals, and Burrow's done really well. But we saw a couple of weeks back when the Jets, front seven got to Tannehill. They struggled, and they're a poor team. They do have players that can make plays, and if they do somehow get the upper hand there, potentially could slow the game down. I don't think it's enough to make them win, but I don't think it could be a blowout like a lot of people think if they somehow can get to Burrow and make him struggle. I'm trying to help the Jets fans out here and give them some glimmer of light in the game.
I'll tell you what, I think the Jets have a better chance than one of these teams. One of the teams that we're going to talk about in the next half an hour. Next game, Patriots going up against the Chargers in SoFi Stadium. Mac Jones maybe Mac Jones, Colin, will be back in SoFi Stadium in February. Maybe he'll buy a hot dog as well when he's watching the game with us. But an intriguing game ahead this weekend.
I think it is an interesting game, given what Bill Belichick and the Patriots did to the Chargers and Justin Herbert last year, a 45-0 beatdown. It was an absolute Belichick masterclass on what to do with a rookie QB. But as Austin Eckler said, this is not the Chargers team from last year. Now, Mac Jones has been very good. Not surprised by that. And I actually think a lot of what the Patriots do will it help them against this Chargers team? Chargers are awful against the run. Patriots run the ball pretty solidly, not explosively, but solidly. And the Chargers are really good against the deep pass and against big chunk plays. That's not what the Patriots tend to do. It tends to be a lot of the dink and duck stuff. So the Patriots can certainly cause the Chargers problems. The issue for the Patriots is that their 3 wins have come against the Jets and the Texans. And the Denver Broncos had 3 wins and they were 3-0, but then you saw the caliber of the teams that they beat. And that's, I think, the issue for the Patriots. So I think this could be a really intriguing game. I think Staley against Belichick should be interesting to see. I think that the Chargers are going to be looking for revenge after last year's game. I think Herbert has taken further steps from an impressive rookie year. I think the Chargers will want to make a statement after what was a really disappointing loss to the Ravens. So I have the Chargers edging it, but I think this will be very close.
That defeat last year for the Chargers against the Patriots was the worst defeat in their history. I still think they'll have a point to prove on that game. And 164 yards on average, the Chargers are giving up on their own game. So whilst they might win this game, and I do side with the Chargers, I think it will be a closer game than people think. I've seen a lot of people this week could have picked the Patriots and feeling that line of 5.5 was a little bit too much and it'll be a lot closer than people think. But for the Chargers to make a long-term run in terms of going towards the Super Bowl, they've got to correct this run game issue. And Damian Harris is the kind of player that can exploit that all day long. And I think that's what the Patriots will do. Key looked after us in London, didn't he? Look, I think the Patriots will play well. I think they'll keep it reasonably close. Mac Jones, funny enough, I said it the other day when we were talking. Mac Jones has thrown more yards than Justin Herbert this season. Would you believe? And I think he's only one ball left. One ball less in terms of how many attempts he's had. So not so bad a quarterback after all, And I think he will only get better. But for me, Justin Herbert has moved on. And I think the Chargers coming off the boy, as Colin has rightly said, will be looking to prove a point after that tough road loss to the Ravens. I think the Chargers will win, but I do think it'll be close as well.
I'm glad you brought that stat up, Brian. I was about to mention that for Mac Jones'
killing you tonight with stats,
yeah. Michael's Mac Jones' favourite fan, so I knew he'd enjoy that one. But look, it's a bit difficult for me because, look, I'm a Pats fan on this, but Justin Herbert for me is the class of the last couple of years as a quarterback. We just talked about Joe Burrow and how well he's playing, but Herbert and what he can do and how consistent he's been. He's got the prettiest deep ball in football, and how he has been performing. I think with the moves they made in the offseason and shoring up the offensive line, obviously with the moves at the coaching position as well, and what Staley has brought to the game there, are revolutionizing what the Chargers do and therefore are making them a legitimate Super Bowl contender, not just a playoff contender, and a legitimate Super Bowl contender this season. The AFC is going to be wild and wacky this year, and I think the Chargers are going to have a say in all of it. The funny thing for me is the Patriots are in many ways the Chargers' bogey team. You all rightly mentioned the 45-zip loss, Patriots, I can't remember. I honestly, I'm not saying this in a way to wind up a Chargers fan. I can't remember the Patriots losing to the Chargers. There's been many games we should have lost. I remember a game where the Chargers had 4 turnovers on stupid things like the receiver not being down and dropping the ball because it was his first year out of college on the ground celebrating. The Patriots defenders jumping on it. Generally, the Patriots have beaten the Chargers by being better coached than the Chargers. Understanding, I'm not so sure that advantage necessarily exists in the same way as it did, for example, under Schottenheimer or under Lynn in the past. So there is a very different environment there. Everybody wants to talk about the 45-0, rightly so. What happened the week after? Well, the Patriots went to the Rams and got shellacked 24-3 on Thursday Night Football against the defensive coordinator who absolutely locked them down, who now happens to be the head coach of the Chargers. I mean, Austin Eckler's questionable. If I'm looking for positives from a Patriots perspective, we've had so much movement on the offensive line. 10 different people have had playing time there in the first 7 games, but hopefully it's locking down and settling down a little bit. Damian Harris could be the first person to go for 100 yards in 3 consecutive, first running back to go for 100 yards in 3 consecutive games since Corey Dillon back in 2004. And yes, against the Charger defense that's given up 162.5 yards on the ground, now's as good a time as any to pull that off. We talked, actually earlier in the week, briefly talked to our friend Danny Woodhead, who's going to come back on the show in a couple of weeks' time, and he was mentioning about how positive he was about what Mack has done so far, but equally is only nothing but excited about Justin Herbert and what he's seen from the Chargers and the potential there in that Chargers team. I would love to say the Patriots are going to control it on the ground. Belichick's going to come up with another amazing game plan, and they're somehow going to defend and take advantage of the Chargers, especially on special teams, which is still a nightmare for the Chargers. That is their big flaw at the moment. Their special teams is still appalling. I want to say the Patriots. The heart says the Patriots. The head says the Chargers. Screw it. I'm going with the heart. Patriots to win.
Michael, sorry, Mike, just a quick one. 2 quick ones.
Yeah, I was going mute.
Sorry, Mark, I'm in shock with your pick. Mark says that the Chargers haven't beaten the Patriots for a while. The Patriots are going for 6 wins in a row against the Chargers. And Mark was reminiscing about episodes, throughout the last year. It was actually on that episode when the Rams played the Patriots on our Thursday night show last November, where Mark called out that the Patriots would in fact draft Mac Jones. He was in the war room well in advance.
I was calling it. I will say this, right? And look, I'm not trying to defend my pick because it's probably indefensible in many respects. I'm not sure the Patriots are going to win this. But last season, we were all talking about how bad the Pats were at times. And they sneak a win against the Ravens out of nowhere that nobody expected. This season already, they nearly beat the Cowboys, albeit there was more with Cowboys ineptitude than necessarily Patriots' great play. There's always a game where out of nowhere, Belichick pulls something out. Maybe this is the game. Go Pats.
Well, just going on what you said there, there's always a game that maybe he pulls it out. He's had to play in the first few weeks of the season. He's played the Jets twice, and he's played the Texans. So if we're looking at stats, and Mac Jones has done very well for his rookie season, so let's just chill the Jets, shall we say? Chill the brakes, boys. I seen a really good tweet yesterday, and it actually takes me into my next game that we're going to talk about. With 79,701 passing yards on Sunday against the Chargers, Mac Jones would break Tom Brady's all-time passing record as Tom Brady throws for 0 yards. That got 6,000 likes on Twitter. I thought it was funny, personally. I think Mac Jones...
I'd imagine you'll want the Patriots to win, Michael, to maintain your opportunity to win this division as a Broncos fan.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I don't think they will win. I think the Chargers will win this game. I think they'll win it comfortably, to be honest with you. I think Mac Jones has got potential, like any rookie quarterback in the league. But again, he is almost as stiff as I feel right now after a few days in Portugal, and he's always that stiff. And he's played the Jets twice and the Texans. If he goes to SoFi Stadium tomorrow and plays well, I will publicly apologize. And yeah, that's it. Now, one of the replies to that tweet, by the way, the Chargers are going to win. So One of the replies to that tweet was the 79,000 one was, and Myers will still go scoreless. And then somebody replied to that, bigger chance that Mack throws for 79,000 yards than Myers ever getting in the end zone. Let's look at the next game. The Jacksonville Jaguars 1-5 against the 2-5 Seattle Seahawks. Colin, this has been a year to forget so far for Seattle.
Yeah, it has. And it got Pete Carroll to say a bit about Russell Wilson, that if it hadn't been for Russell Wilson, he might not have been in Seattle for as long as he has been. Because I imagine if he had to have Geno play, who was sacked 5 times last week, who threw for 167 yards last week, and half of those came on the pass to DK Metcalf, who after that got in Lattimore's face and then disappeared for the rest of the game. Tyler Lockett, their guy who was so impressive at the beginning of the season, just MIA currently. You would say for both of these teams, they will both say, the Jags will say, oh, great, well, we have a chance against the Seahawks. And the Seahawks will say, oh, great, we have a chance against the Jags. It's difficult to, I'd say the next couple of games that we're going to talk about, it's difficult to get very excited about because all of these teams are struggling. But Trevor Lawrence is improving. He's grade over 90 for the past 3 games. And the Seahawks are not particularly good against the pass. You'd like if Lawrence had a couple of more weapons to throw to. That's, I think, a bit of an issue. The Jags, though, are awful at converting on third down, absolute bottom of the league. This should be the Seahawks, especially as they're at home. But how excited will the 12th man be for a 2-5 team with Geno Smith at QB? If the Jags had a different head coach and had Trevor Lawrence, I'd absolutely go for them because I think Lawrence is going to be outstanding. But I don't trust Urban Meyer. I think Pete Carroll finds a way, but I don't know if this is one that's going to feature on Red Zone all that much.
There's 2 things I call out about Seattle Seahawks right now. One, it's probably bad news for all the fans of all teams around the league. Broncos, other teams that are looking for a quarterback this offseason, because I felt that this Russell Wilson saga would roll around in the next offseason and potentially would see a trade. But I think the Seahawks will realise now what a pair they have on their hands, because when he's not there and you see them playing with Geno Smith, you realise how good he is. And for me, I don't think he'll be going anywhere. And Pete Carroll, in fairness, despite the 2 losses, they won in Pittsburgh, they had an opportunity to win that game. They rallied when they were 14-0 down. And look, that game on Monday night, I think Saints probably won a little bit more comfortably than the score suggests. But they're keeping in games. And Tyler Lockett for me is key. He had 178 yards in the first 2 games. Since then, he's had 159 in 5 games. They need to get him more involved. Metcalf had that big touchdown on Monday. And I know they won in London. I know there was a big hoopla. I know there was hype about it. But I'm still not sold on the Jags, because prior to that game, they lost, 20-odd games in a row. They'd given up over 30 points for 17 games in a row. They're going into Seattle. And despite the record, Seattle is Seattle, and the 12th men will be up for it. So for me, I actually think this game is a blowout. I think Geno's going to have a nice day out, and I think he's going to win.
I don't know if he's going to have a nice day out, Brian, but yes, it is unusual that the 12th man sees Seattle losing at home, especially early in the season. In fact, so far, they've lost the first 3 games at home this year. It's the first time since 1992. I mean, many times you have to go back 30 years to see an occurrence like that. That's obviously you can imagine you're dealing with an atypical year. Colin has left us. One of the fascinating things for me on this is Urban Meyer has made no secret of the fact of how much he actually admires Pete Carroll, and he admires the coaching staff and the players and the construct he built in Seattle. He was actually asked about it during the week because there's no fewer than 11 players or former coaches, including Darren Bevel, including Brian Schottenheimer, who are now with the Jaguars, who are going back to Seattle. And he said, yeah, it's not an accident. Yeah, really admire what he did. Not an accident. I'm trying to mirror that and everything. And given their both, and Colin's obviously quite angry about Pete Carroll's past in USC, you could be angry about Urban Meyer's past in the college game as well in terms of scandal hit enterprises. So they've definitely got a few things in common, shall we say. So it's a bit of a reunion. Sound the reunion klaxon, Michael, for many players in this game. But I'm kind of with Brian. Like, the Jags have the better quarterback by far. The Jags have a lot going for them. They've got a bit of positivity finally going for them. But I just feel like the Seahawks will have enough, especially with 12th man, and they have played tough in those games, even though they have to put up with Geno Smith as their quarterback, which, I don't know, it feels like they're in the seventh circle of hell, and they're slowly working their way down. But 2-5, that is just painful if you're a Hawks fan. Look, I'll take the Seahawks. I don't feel particularly comfortable with it, but sure, I just picked the Patriots in the last game, so I'm clearly having a bit of it. Go on.
They haven't lost 4 games in
I'm not
12 years. They haven't lost 4 games in a row. I know you're talking about the home record, Mark Taylor's wins the last time, but just 4 games under itself, when they're home and away, they haven't lost that in 12 years. Some things like that just don't happen. And for me,
Mark, you were talking about a reunion? Yeah.
The reunion klaxon, Michael, yeah. 11.
Oh, it's back. It's back.
Just waking up anybody who's dozed off late or so,
Jesus, man. It's just more often. I really liked the fight in the Jags in London. I loved seeing Urban Meyer not understand what I was saying to him. Trevor Lawrence is a very, very good looking man. Very, very good looking man. The Jaguars pulled off a result as good as Shamrock Rovers yesterday, boys, winning in London. And going on how the Falcons have played after and the way in which Seattle's played over the last few weeks, I'm going to take it as my shock of the week. I'm going to take the Jaguars to beat the Seahawks in a game that goes with the under. Jaguars maybe get 17, maybe win like 17-14. I can't see how Geno Smith can get that team down the line. I think in terms of the 12s, I think they've checked out. They're watching the hockey. I don't think they really care anymore this season. And yeah, I'm taking the Jags with the big upset. And let's see what happens, boys.
So you're going to be watching the Seattle Kraken. We mentioned the Atlanta Braves earlier on. Geez, we'll have to slot in an NBA franchise now for one of the teams, and we'll cover the whole Big Four.
I think Russell Wilson going down, just on that point, has saved Pete Carroll's job for another year. Maybe we'll get Pete Carroll on. He posts on LinkedIn a lot. I'm trying to DM him, but I can't get him on. So, Colin, bear with me on that. Colin, we're going to skip the next game, and move on to the Tampa Bay Bucks. Are we happy enough to do that? Yeah, I mean, Washington
really enticing game in my life.
Washington football team at the Denver Broncos. Washington football team 2-5 at the 3-4 Denver Broncos. Peyton Manning is being enthroned or whatever into the Ring of Fame. Brandon Stokely, who came on our show beforehand, will throw a 30-yard pass to Peyton. Sorry, will not throw will receive a 30-yard pass from Peyton Manning. That'd be weird. At Empire Field. That may be the only action column that people will see in the end zone tomorrow.
Yeah, you can't say this is a particularly enticing game. Might be the least enticing game of the weekend, especially given that Jerry Jeudy was slated to return, and it now seems that even is questionable because the Broncos are not allowed to have nice things. I mean, you've got two of the most disappointing sides in the NFL going up against one another, and I was listening to the PFF podcast this week, and they made the point that in the ELO rankings, this is essentially the same team, right? 23rd going against 24th overall, 20th versus 21st in terms of offense, 16th versus 17th in terms of defense. Both of these franchises in desperate need of a franchise QB. Both will be in search of that at the end of the season. In the Broncos' past 3 games, not one time have they held the lead. And 4 of the Broncos' 7 opponents, including their last 3, have each scored a touchdown on their first possession. So that's pretty awful if you're a Broncos head coach and a defensive mastermind that the scripted plays are beating you and beating you all ends up. Broncos have given up 21 sacks in 7 games. We talked earlier in the year, I mean, even against the Giants, Teddy Bridgewater was running for his life. We talked that it wasn't sustainable, and here we are. Washington haven't been impressive on defense, and particularly in terms of that vaunted pass rush. But they got to Rodgers 3 times last week, and they have been getting pressure, if not sacks. But despite the fact that they get pressure, what's worrying for them is they can't defend the pass. But unfortunately, I don't know if the Broncos are going to be able to take advantage of that. If they can, then they should win. But I'm going to say that given the issues that the Washington football team have, this should be the Broncos getting back to 500. Brian, what do you think?
Well, I've learned now how to get the Broncos beaten. Colin, unfortunately for you, is just pick them, because I picked them the last 3 weeks and they've lost every time. And I'm going to pick them again for this game. And to be honest, it's a lot to do with the fact of what you're saying. There's just no faith right now in this Washington football team's defense. You know, we've touched on how I suppose we proclaimed as arguably one of the best defenses going into the season. It hasn't materialized. I did think there was an up. You know, you're right in fairness what you're saying about last week's performance, and not just on the defense. In fact, the offense played really well, and particularly Heineke. You know, he was unfortunate with that touchdown. I know we said the rules are the rules now. You know, in years gone by, that would have been a touchdown, but they had chances last week. They were in the red zone 4 times, and they didn't. I don't think they put any of them away. So they would have walked away from that game thinking we had a great opportunity going into Lambeau. They held the Packers to 24 points. But look, it's a different week. And like, what shows where the Broncos are now, that the fact that, you know, you see this, you know, Von Miller now potentially being the main candidate to be traded by Tuesday, which is worrying, because if he goes, where does that lead him on the front 7? He's their main player. And there we go. I'm picking the Broncos because I feel the Broncos are more secure offensively to go down and up and down the field and score enough points. And I think your defense will do enough to curtail any Washington offense having a second good game 2 weeks in a row.
The clapper, which we all hope alludes to his propensity to clap randomly on the sidelines and not due to any other issues he may be suffering from a medical perspective. But on this game in particular, look, I mean, God, it's a bit of a depressing game. Michael, I know when the Broncos were 3-0, I made a joke to you that said, well, they're well on their way to at least starting the season 4-5, or, you know, if they're lucky, or maybe 3-6. You got a bit in the hump with me, but I knew it would prove prescient in relation to it. This is the game which can lead them to the promised land of 4-5, because they won't win next week. If they don't win it, like, you know, you're looking down the barrel at 3-6. You're looking down a long, long season to come there. And you're absolutely right in calling out, look who the Patriots have beaten. They've only beaten the Jets twice and the Texans. It's not exactly murderer's row. And the Broncos, you're right there with us, guys, you know, with the Jets, Giants, and Texans as well, wasn't it? Jags. Oh, Jags, Giants now. So anyway, what worries me a little bit if I'm a Broncos fan is actually some of the noises coming out. So this would be, if you fail to win today, it's your first winless October since 1967. And during the week, Teddy Bridgewater came out, and I'll probably mess up the quote, but he kind of said, it's not time yet to panic, but it's getting there. And then almost immediately, Von Miller's kind of going like, no, this is panic time to sound the alarm. We need to win now. We have to have a sense of urgency, an all-time high. So they can't even agree on whether it's not time to panic, which doesn't really bode well for a degree of consistency amongst the organization. You are honoring Peyton Manning at halftime. I think at both times, you're honoring pre-game for the Hall of Fame and then halftime going into the Denver Broncos Ring of Fame. So, you know, he gets it on the double. Equally, Washington is in a weird state. But the last 2 weeks, they played the Chiefs. They completely locked them down in the first half. They played the Packers really tough last week. The defense has definitely rounded more into shape. Can Taylor Heineke keep up enough momentum, especially with the altitude, maybe playing a bit, you know, first time playing at altitude? Always plays a little bit funnier for quarterbacks as well. Something Brady has suffered with during his career down in Mile High. Look, Jerry Jeudy's coming back, likely for the Broncos. it should be the Broncos, but I just feel it's kind of like whose tailspin is worse. And I still feel you're coming into crash land a little bit harder and heavier with a replacement head coach for the end of the season. And surprisingly, I think the Washington football team will therefore win it. And I take no pleasure in that, but yeah, I just have that feeling. Maybe either that or I just want to give away my lead in the picks league this year. I'm just trying to level it up, guys. But I'll go Washington.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. That seemed like almost like an apology there. So thanks very much for that. I'm happy you said that about the murmurings out of training this week in terms of the coach saying everything's fine and the players saying it's time to, it's very, very frustrating. If I was the management of this franchise, not that they have any at the minute because they have no owner, but they would move back this Ring of Fame appearance until next year. The reality is, I am scared that the Broncos on Sunday are going to make Taylor Heineke look like a Hall of Fame quarterback. Genuinely, I am very concerned. I think that half the team is checked out. I think talk of Von Miller being traded. I think as a fan, for a start, if that was to happen and he was to leave this team, based upon everything he's done at this point in the season, without a proper send-off, would be unforgivable on the current management in this team. But that's a whole different conversation. If Von Miller's on the trading block, Von Miller is not active on Sunday against Washington. I look at Terry McLaurin. I look at J.D. McKissick. I look at Seals Jones, Logan Thomas. Washington will beat the Broncos. No problem whatsoever. Should they beat the Broncos? No. But they will. They will beat them by 7 to 10 points. And I don't think Vic Fangio should be fired because a team like the Broncos don't fire their coach during the season. They did after a London game, but they won't fire him. It will continue on to the point where it's beyond toxic. And I think they have no idea what they're at. And it's depressing to say that. I've got Washington by 7 to 10 points. And I'll say this early because you've mentioned it, Mark. The Cowboys are going to cover by about 30 or 40 next week on the Broncos. That is, it's coming next week.
Can I just make a point on the Von Miller situation? Like you're saying, and I know you obviously have great affection for the guy, like any team, any sport does. But if they don't make a deal now, where does that lead them in the long run? Is George Payne not better? If it's a last season, come Tuesday, are they not better off giving him the opportunity to go play somewhere else where he potentially could win a Super Bowl and rebuild? Because it's a rebuild, and you need more picks and you need to bring in players that can cover across different positions further down the line. So I know you're saying about he doesn't get the send off he deserves and stuff, but we've seen it in the past. Players get traded, and you have to think long term what the right thing is for the team and the organization as a whole. And I'm not saying that because it's the Broncos. That's just I think the Giants will trade Evan Ingram on Tuesday. Would I be happy about it? Probably not, because he's still our best tight end. But I can say why at this stage of the season, if we lose on Monday night to the Chiefs, which a lot of people would expect it to happen, I think he'll be gone come Tuesday. And particularly, he might end up in Green Bay, having them lost their main tight end. I could see a situation where they will offer a third or a fourth. Maybe three is too heavy, but look, it's the same situation.
It's yeah.
I was just going to say one storyline we didn't mention: underrated running backs a little bit. Antonio Gibson for the Washington football team. It's not quite in the Taylor category and things like this, or the Henry category, but he's effective and he's going to be quite good there. And on the Denver side, guys, I mean, Javonte Williams is basically taking over the starter's gig from Melvin Gordon at this stage. Like, is it this week confirmed, or is it just going to be gradual during the season? But he's certainly got more upside by a long way.
Well, I think, Mark, the issue is that the Broncos don't know how to use the two running backs. I mean, you can see the Packers utilize, like, Dylan got the most yards. I mean, this is a league now where running backs can complement each other, like, unless you have a Derrick Henry type, but the Broncos have two solid running backs. And I agree, Williams has much more upside and he runs really well. He runs angry and he breaks tackles. But the Broncos should be able to utilize Melvin Gordon. Pat Shermer hasn't been able to do that. Pat Shermer also gave an answer during press conference during the week that sometimes they don't score in the first half of a game.
Yeah, well, look, forget about him. Sorry, guys. Like, I've had to sit through 2 years of listening to that man, and I was listening to that man as the head coach, not even the offensive coordinator. Anything that comes out of his mouth, write it off.
I think we could look at I could talk about this to the guys. Well, I'll talk about this in a general sense for 10 seconds, and we'll move on. Guys like Von Miller, guys that have won a Super Bowl, been MVP, and have been through Miller probably sat after the Super Bowl and went, right, I've got another couple of chances to win the ring here. He didn't do it. It's unfortunate for him. He might be looking at an opportunity in LA and going, I deserve this. And fair play to him if he does it. We'll come back to that. Maybe Mark or Colin will share a live show on Tuesday. Or we could bypass, we don't need to do Monday Night Football live, boys, the Chiefs against the Giants, do we? I'm joking. I thought we'd get a better reaction. I'm only joking. Of course, they're going to be live Monday night. Big game. Bucks 6-1, Saints 4-2. Colin, intriguing game. Saints 4-2 as Mark disappears.
Yeah, I mean, given what the Saints are, moving on from historic franchise QB, it's not a bad record, and going up against division rival who they beat up in the regular season last year, but then the playoffs arrived. If you're looking, I suppose, for hope, it's that the Bucks haven't been as good on the D-line this year as they were at the end of last season, and losing Levante David has made them easier to run on. And the Saints, I suppose, have taken action. They brought Mark Ingram back because Alvin Kamara is a very good running back, but he's not a guy you want. He's not a Derrick Henry type who you want to give the ball to every time. In fact, by giving him the ball more this year, they've actually seen his yards per carry drop. So I think that's a good move from the Saints. But the issue for the Saints is their receiving core is just so bad. If they maybe had some of the Broncos wide receivers, this would be potentially a much better game because they'd be able to take advantage of a beat up Bucs secondary. But Callaway, who is their top receiver, is on pace for 750 yards in a 17-game season in an NFL which has slanted towards the offense. And that's a huge concern if you're the Saints. I'm intrigued to see Lattimore versus Mike Evans. I think that will be something to keep an eye on. Sam Monson made the point that Lattimore seems to need you to get in his face in order to do that. DK Metcalf made the mistake of doing it in the game last week, and then Lattimore shut him down. He always seems to want to play against Evans. Now, Evans is an incredible wide receiver. He really is. And Antonio Brown goes out last week. Evans steps up. This will be, as a division game, it should be a good game, I think. Two really good coaching staffs. I mean, the job Bruce Arians and his staff have done has been fantastic, and Sean Payton is a really, really good coach. But the Bucs are going to have too much for the Saints for me.
Colin, you asked about hope and where the Saints will find hope from. They'll find hope from a defense that's ranked third in the league and has been really strong last year, and they've been very strong this year. But you look again on the upside for the Bucs, 17.6% in terms of rushes on Brady, the best in the league. So the offensive line again is proving again, similar enough to when they went into the playoffs last year, that they're there to help Brady and he can do what he needs to do. What's overlooked as well, because of that playoff defeat for the Saints last year, the Saints have had their Bucs number. Prior to that, they'd won 5 in a row. They only gave up 26 points last year to the Bucs, and 3 points of which was in the game in Tampa. So, as well, I see Sean Payton has readjusted his offense this season. He's completely gone run orientated to a large extent. And once they won on Monday, I felt what was missing on Monday for them was Taysom Hill. He wasn't there. He's that kind of Swiss Army knife that they just call upon, and he's a wild card in every game. I was on Bucs all week. This is a strange one. I don't know why. Mark's looking at me as if this is supposed to be a blowout, So now I'm going to pick the Saints. Saints caused the upset. And they'll be level. They'll be level in the division. I saw a lot of people saying this week, 5.5 point Bucs favourites. That's too big. Saints can be very strong at home. I'm going to pick the Saints.
The Saints are still starting Jameis Winston, the quarterback, right? Just checking. I didn't miss something that strangely happened. Their defense is strong. You're absolutely right. Their defense is consistent, Brian. On run defense, they are. I wouldn't quite say locked down, but they're powerful on run defense. And in fairness, the Bucs' rushing game has been spotty at best. Mike Evans will be blocked out by Marshawn Lattimore, and Antonio Brown is still not playing. What does that mean? Well, it just means get on OJ Howard or Cameron Brate to score a touchdown at any time. And I'll take Chris Godwin at 2+ touchdowns and whatever yards the over-under is for him during the game, because Godwin will have a game. He has against the Saints in years gone past when effectively Mike Evans is removed from the game, and he will this week. I mean, the most fascinating thing for me this week was more about Tom Brady on Monday Night Football with the Manning brothers, yucking it up and getting in trouble with Ryan Shazier and various defensive players for saying the defenses are like dogs chasing cars, and effectively making a comment as like, have you ever gone into a defensive game room? Well, after about 5 minutes, you realize these guys would never make it as offensive players. You're kind of going, Shazier's called him out, so like, are you basically calling defensive players dumb? And I think he was. So you can imagine defenses will have even more reason to love Tom Brady this week. But I'm not saying it's going to be a blowout, Brian, but I mean, what have the Saints done this year? Outside the first game where they shocked the world, they haven't done much. They haven't done much other than have a consistent enough defense, but they haven't done much on offense. They haven't had a home advantage in the way they used to always have. They're a vast shadow of what they used to be. And yes, I know you can say, well, they beat the Bucs twice last year, and they probably should have beaten them in the playoffs, except for obviously it didn't quite pan out that way. But that was with Breeze there. Kamara hasn't performed to the extent he can, and that's probably a reflection of the rest of the offense in relation to it. I honestly was shaking my head. I think 5.5 is too low. I'll comfortably take the over on the Bucs on this one, because I think they're going to win comfortably by over a touchdown. I know it's a division game. They can always be funky, but I don't see the Saints being in the same league. Well, they're in the same league, but they're not in the same league.
I think what we've recognised this season is how good a head coach Sean Payton is, because with Breeze move going on, and in fairness, Breeze to a certain extent was holding them back last year, to be honest. Just he wasn't getting the balls down the field. But like Winston isn't the long-term answer, but yet they're 4-2, and to win tomorrow to be tied with the Saints with the Bucs in the division. So I think he finds ways when they're up against the scheme and find ways to pull wins out of the bag, and that's why I just feel something says to me that the Saints will just do enough to win this game.
The Saints are coming. Yeah, look, Sean Payton, it's an interesting situation with Halloween. I'm not sure if he'll get any bars of bounty through the trick or treat, but maybe a Mars bar or two.
Bounty K.
Ooh, indeedy, my friend, indeedy. I'm with Mark. I think the Bucs will cover this massively. I think Brady can throw it himself at this point. I don't get the hype around the Saints defense. Does somebody want to challenge me on that? I don't think there is.
That's don't lie, Michael.
I bet we're 7 weeks in, and it's the Saints. I don't know.
It's the same defense that was very strong last year, and they've only improved. So
time will tell. I'm taking the Bucs by 10-14. I think the Bucs will go in and perform well. I like what you said. Did you say, Mark, who was the running back you said would score 2 touchdowns if you're going to take it?
I'm picking Chris Godwin to score 2+ touchdowns.
Chris Godwin. I like the Cameron Brate for wide
receiver. Cameron Brate, anytime touchdown. Yeah.
I was about to say Scotty Miller, but Scotty Miller's gone. R.I.P. Scotty Miller for the season. And
he's not dead.
I know he's not dead. It's 12:20 at night.
We're into Halloween. He's
Kyle Fuller could end up in Tampa Bay on Tuesday. Just putting that out there. He would be a perfect trade for a team that is crying out for a player like Kyle Fuller. And maybe Kyle might deserve a ring, because he's not going to get one where he is right now. Before we look at Sunday Night Football, I want to thank everybody for their comments tonight. We've hit 2,000 live viewers. Sensational. Ahead of Match of the Day. We've done well, boys. Or the Premiership in some cases. Matchbook Betting Exchange, our sponsors, have a £15 or €15 welcome offer. Money back as cash if your first bet loses. Enter bonus code upon arrival. code Irish NFL Show. That's for new customers only. Your odds must be at least of 1.8 or more to be eligible. Matchbook Betting Exchange, Brian, offers both game lines, overs, props, and totals. What's on the cards this week? And we're not talking about the Arizona Cardinals because I know you all went for them.
Well, there's a little bit of overruling happening here, unfortunately for Mark, and for Colin to a certain extent. So we're going with a treble this week. So we lost out last week, so we're going back to a treble this week. The treble this week is the Atlanta Falcons to beat the Panthers. I think we're all happy enough with that. The 49ers to beat the Bears, with the exception of Colin. Colin, you're overruled. And Mark, you've been overruled because I know you went with your heart. And any other day of the week, if you're doing this in the morning and not the evening, you probably would be picking the Chargers against the Patriots. So the treble this week is paying 3-1, which isn't a bad price for a treble. The Atlanta Falcons, San Francisco 49ers, the LA Chargers. We've had 6 weeks of bets and we've won 4, so we're on a reasonably good roll. That's the treble this week. Thanks to our friends at Matchbook for supporting us on the show and providing us with some money to spend as part of the show. And please do bet responsibly.
Yes, bet responsibly. But more importantly as well, boys, looking at some of these odds for me, I like the over in this Titans-Colts game. The over is 51. I like it. I like it. I'm just putting it out there. And what's so good about the exchange is you can set your odds and somebody can challenge you to that. So have a look at the exchange, boys, if you're unsure of how to go on to it. There's some great videos on there. Aidan and the lads from Matchbook will explain how to do it. As Brian said as well, 18 plus, please bet responsibly. But if you're going to have a bit of crack, take our bet as well. So who's the 3 teams again, Brian? Check your phone.
The 49ers, the Falcons, and the Chargers.
Lovely. Thank you very much. And again, thanks so much to Matchbook for their support. £15, 15 yo-yos. Welcome offer. Use code Irish NFL Show. Sign up today. You have to deposit at least £25 or euros and place your first bet. And if it loses, they will refund your stake as cold, hard cash. Halloween on Sunday. A scary game in prospect with the 5-1 Dallas Cowboys, 6-1 because they're going to beat the Broncos next week, going up against the Minnesota Vikings, who are 3-3. This game is at US Bank Stadium. Colin, you've been there. How cold is Minnesota?
Minnesota was cold, but that stadium is unbelievable. Really, really beautiful stadium. It's going to be a fascinating game. I mean, what it comes down to, I think, in large ways, is Dak and whether Dak starts. And if I was the Cowboys, I'd be really hesitant because I just think, why take any risk with that calf? If they lose against the Vikings, they're still 5-2 and they're still very much alive. But if Dak's calf goes and they lose Dak for 6 weeks, that's huge. And he has himself, I know that the last update I saw was that he was sore after ramping up intensity on Thursday. And he said he wouldn't have the final say because it was more than just one game. So there seems to be recognition from the Cowboys there that they do need to be careful with it. They're also going up against the best pass rush in the league. The Vikings are serious about getting to the QB, and that's helped their secondary. What will be one to watch also, look, is Diggs against Jefferson. Diggs with 7 interceptions. He's on a hot streak. It's very difficult to keep that going season after season, but during a season, certainly it has been done. You could be looking at him, and it's huge risk reward because he can give up enormous chunk plays. We saw that, against the Patriots, probably most obviously, but he will always endeavor to make a play. So you might get a pick 6 or you might get 50 yards off him. It's high risk, high reward. I am really fascinated to see how he does against Jefferson. Cousins has been playing really well, 13 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. And the Vikings, they can beat anyone, they can lose to anyone. If the Vikings played vintage 49ers under Joe Montana, I think they'd play them close. Equally, if they played the 0-16 Lions, I think they'd play them close because that's what these Vikings teams seem to do. I talk about from the past, But that's what they do. They just play teams close. They seem to play to the level of whoever they're playing. If Dak, and I think the Cowboys will be silly to risk him, I'm going to say that they don't play him, and therefore I think the Vikings get the victory on Sunday Night Football.
I was going to touch on how strong this Vikings defense has been this season, in particular how poor they were last year, and I keep reflecting back to that game on Christmas Day where Kamara scored 6 touchdowns, and it looked like Zimmer's son was going to be sacked as defensive coordinator, but he managed to hold on to his job. And in fairness, they've turned it around. I think they're second most sacks in the league. I'm going to take you back to a game in 1982, Michael, the first Monday Night Football game of the season, in the shortened season after the lockout. And Tony Dorsett ran for a 99-yard touchdown for the Cowboys. Well, we're going to see something similar on Sunday, except it won't be the Cowboys running back. It'll be Dalvin Cook, because he's going to run all over this Cowboys defense. The Vikings won 3 of the last 4 games, and you can argue they should have won 2 games at the start of the season where they lost some to a field goal to the Bengals, and they should have beaten the Arizona Cardinals. And then we'd have a very different picture of how we feel this Vikings team is. Potentially, you picked them to win the division. Maybe that won't be the case, but they look like they're a strong side to go towards a wild card. Unusual to see 2 teams coming off a bye. I can't recall the last time I've seen a game where both teams are playing each other coming off a bye week. So I don't think there's any real advantage there. I hadn't even touched on the Dak thing. Even if Dak plays, I'm convinced the Vikings are going to win this game. The Vikings have a knack of losing games that we ought to, not say we expect them to win, but they lose tough games where they have the game there for them. This week, I think they're going to overcome that. I think they're going to beat this Cowboys team.
Tony Dorsett, Derrick Henry, I think, are the only 2 players who've had 99-yard runs. So Brian O'Leary's called his shot there. For the 3rd time in NFL history, we're going to see a 99-yard run this weekend.
And you'll be up late watching it. The clocks go back, 20 past 12, kickoff.
Some of us can work on Monday morning outside of our living room. So
we're going to be watching the game in less than 24 hours now, gents, is what I want to emphasize as well. But if that shot is called and is dead right, Brian, fair play is what I'll say. Fair play. Look, it does revolve around Dak. I mean, the Cowboys offense has been the most dynamic in the league, frankly. It has been absolutely on fire, absolutely fantastic ever since the opening game against the Bucks. So they have been well on fire. And the question is, if Dak plays, it's one offense. And obviously, if Dak doesn't play, we saw what happened last year and how they performed. A very different environment altogether. So, look, that's key. There's a couple of reunion klaxons that could go off again on Michael on this one. Mike Zimmer, obviously going back to the Cowboys. He worked there for 13 years. Mike McCarthy knows the Vikings all too well from his time as the Green Bay Packers coach. So going up to Minnesota will not be an unusual occurrence or experience for him. Overall in the game, I'd love to call my pick dependent on Dak's status. If he plays even at 80, 90%, I think the Cowboys have too much. Without him playing, I think the Vikings have too many weapons. But like I said, this is the team I don't want. This is the worst. This is the game that just don't ever let me put any money anywhere near. Because I've said it before, you never can bet on the Cowboys because who knows what you're going to get. And you can definitely never bet on the Vikings. So just don't put any money from, any way, shape or form on this game. That's my gamble aware message for everybody. Overall, screw it. I'll go with the Vikings. I'll assume Dak doesn't play. They keep him safe for one more week. And Cousins, Cook, and co. have enough to handle the Cowboys.
Just from it's very, very difficult at this point, and it wouldn't matter if the show went out at 12 o'clock tomorrow or whenever. It's very difficult to see if Dak Prescott's going to play or not. If I'm the Cowboys, I'm honestly taking a look at next week and going, let's keep Dak for another week. Let's just keep him for another week to see the crack. I think that Dak won't play, and because of that, and thank you, Fred, by the way, as well. Honestly, though, I think the Vikings will win. I don't see a 99-yard touchdown happening, but who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? I think the Cowboys will lose a game, but they basically have a bye week next week, and they look really good. I heard Richard Graves talking on Jeff Reinbold's show last night, and I've never heard somebody as high on a team, and it shows you Richard's been through it for 20 or 30 years with that team. He believes in this team, and the Cowboys could be a very interesting prospect going forward down the stretch. Have we any final words, Colin? We'll start with you. Obviously, 1 year in.
Yeah, look, it's been a great year. So many great moments. But I think just seeing fans kind of come together, we knew that there was a huge appetite in Ireland for the NFL, and to see that can grow and continue to grow over the last year has been really fantastic. And to get to meet with so many people at the meetups and in London has been really enjoyable as well. So just looking forward to what the future holds. But yeah, just look, an absolutely fantastic year, and look forward to many.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic year. I recall when we started out, we did it the first few weeks, we were just doing Sundays only, or the weekend show only, and then we said, look, let's do a Monday night episode, and we were blown away by the numbers that came on in terms of the audience, and then we said, sure, why not? Let's give Thursday night a go, and then the numbers were really high for Thursday night, and then it just continuously progressed, and then we were fortunate enough to have so many great guests on. And look, this team, look, we all love the sport, and the people who watch, the people who come to the shows, and the people that we caught up with in London and in Dublin and in Belfast, ultimately they love NFL as much as we do, and that's why it's so enjoyable to us. It's not a chore for us. We love talking NFL. We love snagging each other over our teams, and ultimately that's what it's all about, just the enjoyment of it all.
Yeah, Michael,
Thank you,
over a
John.
year, I think I wanted to murder
Thanks,
you
Dan.
when we did nearly 30 hours of shows for the Super Bowl week. I wanted to murder you with the idea of doing a live show for the NFL draft that went on till 5 o'clock in the morning. And tonight now, after 2 hours and 20 minutes on a Saturday night, there's been ups, there's been downs. There's certainly been excitement at times on the Irish NFL show, but it's like we quite happily could do this probably for another 2 hours if we wanted to get divorced. But the point is that it's always great. It's always great talking football with you guys. One final point in terms of football context. Brian's talking about 99 yards. As I said, there's been 2 99-yard run plays. Monday Night Football, we're going to talk about that obviously soon. That's going to be exciting. There's been 13 times there's been a 99-yard pass play. And if I recall correctly, the last time it ever occurred was a Giants completion. Eli Manning to Victor Cruz.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe it doesn't happen in the Cowboys-Vikings game. Maybe it happens on Monday Night Football instead through the air. You never know.
Interesting Monday night game. Giants going up against that weak Chiefs team that are struggling in the division,
Struggling in the division, and Patrick Mahomes seems to be struggling at life at the minute because his wife and brother won't get off TikTok. I'm looking forward to that game Monday. I'm looking forward to talking to you boys about the Sunday action, boys. I'm looking forward to seeing how that Chiefs team can go and kick the Giants' ass, because everyone expects them to, but will they is the question. But until then, boys, it has been 1 year of the Irish NFL show, and we are delighted that everyone's watching the show live tonight. 2,000 people. Enjoy week 8 of the season, and we'll see you tomorrow. See you on Monday night live, 10 o'clock.
Happy Halloween, trick or treat.
Trigger. Don't forget the clocks go back. Don't wake up tomorrow morning earlier.
Don't forget, me and Mark will be out trick or treating tomorrow evening. The phone will be off. I'll be watching the late coverage.
Okay. On that note,
Good night, boys.
Good night, God
It's
bless.
longer fun. It's longer fun.
Good night.
What are you talking about?
So
Add 27 photos to this sound and let it sync.